Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the stream. Good morning to you guys. Good morning. Yeah, that's good. Gotcha. We'll get started here in just a sec. Okay. This has to be off by an hour. I don't know how that's possible. Okay. Anyways, good morning to you guys. Let me fast forward this. I don't know why it's back there. All right, so you're first, Xander. How? Hello, welcome back. So yes, we'll start here with Bitcoin today. Obviously, Bitcoin's over 100,000. Don't really think that's much of a surprise to most people. I think, yeah, I think that's was pretty expected. Again, the targets for Bitcoin have updated to about 120 to 130. I just posted it to Twitter a little bit ago, but I think it was 135,000. It's on my other screen, but yeah, so we did get a little, I don't want to say it's a big update, but by next week, so we have until Sunday. Sunday, we should see Bitcoin price targets even increase again, probably. So right now the target's anywhere from like 120, 133, 135,000 right now on Bitcoin. Anywhere really into that area. It's kind of what we're still expecting. So hopefully that happens sooner than later, right? What's next on our list? Yeah, real quick, we'll hop to this 4-hour chart. So, this is something we talked about yesterday. It was a little iffy for me. I wasn't like super convinced about it, but again, yesterday we talked about watching pretty much long this bottom. Now, did kind of think we'd end up continuing a little bit lower, but it ended up holding support anyways and really just going. So, for those that watched yesterday, if you go a little bit more towards the end of the stream, you can pretty much go through the whole Bitcoin spiel at the end of the day where we had mentioned that this price point, let me flip this to a 5-minute. Basically, yesterday we targeted down to this 94,000, let's call it 95,000. So pretty much had a target, a sell target to 95,000, then a long spot here and a little lower. Kind of thought we might slip this, but all said and done, it ended up working. And sometimes, that's just kind of how it goes, unfortunately. So anyways, yeah, so yesterday's sell target was about 95,000, then suggested it to be a 4-hour long entry, though I did think it'd go a little lower. Didn't quite expect that was going to be the long press off of that level, but sometimes you get lucky, I guess. So anyways, yesterday's 4-hour long recommendation ended up being the push that ran us into a new all-time high and ran about, well, the low is 94,600. So it was about a $9,000 move from that low, which is just wild. But anyways, right now price is again over 100,000. We still have plenty of time. Hold on, Papa Powell said Bitcoin is a competitor to gold, which is a pretty interesting comment coming from him. Yeah, and that could very well have been a portion of it. Again, there's just a lot going on these days. I wouldn't say that it's specifically this 4-hour buy point that would lead to this. There's definitely other things that make moves happen and sentiment, things like that. But yeah, I did hear Powell talk about basically saying it's a competitor to gold, not the dollar, which then means it's also a competitor to the dollar. But it's obviously more closely a competitor to gold if you think about it. But Yeah, I would say, it's debatable whether or not it's a competitor to the dollar. But again, if they're saying it's not, then I would say it is. If they're saying it is a competitor to the dollar, then I would say probably not. I don't know. So I don't necessarily believe that, and that's the case. Because in theory, just like any other currency in the world, whether you go to Russia, here, there, every other currency competes against other currencies in the world. Now, whether you think they're really competing or not, I mean, the reality is you have all these different currencies and they all have different values, and one could be more dominant than the other, like the dollar or the ruble, and so on and so forth. So they're all competitors of each other. Now, if Bitcoin again is a currency, in theory, it is a competitor. It's not a competitor. Again, gold wasn't the easiest to move around and necessarily trade with and take a bunch here and take. So it's not the best medium of exchange as far as traveling with it and being able to transport it. Paper's a better means of exchange in the sense of it's easily, can be easily transported here or there, right? So that's why, and there's other reasons why, but arguably why you have fiat currency, right? Supposedly backed by, gold, because it's easier to deal in paper than it is to deal in pieces of gold. So now you have a situation where Bitcoin's not a competitor of the dollar. If it's not a competitor of the dollar, then it's not a competitor of any other fiat currency in the world. That's up for debate, I guess you could say. So it's not just Bitcoin as a competitor of the dollar. You would argue that it's a competitor of all currencies because all currencies are really just used as a means of exchange to facilitate, goods and services. And you can do that with Bitcoin just as easy as paper for the most part. Not entirely true, but fairly easily, just like paper. Easier than gold and precious metals. So it's starting to breach into that playing field of, is this somewhat comparable or equal in terms of being easily transported back and forth and to and from people. Paper's not very heavy unless you have a lot of it, right? Bitcoin's not heavy at all because it doesn't really have a weight unless it's in a hard drive. So interesting dynamics there. So again, you guys know how that story usually goes. If they say it's not a competitor, it probably is a competitor. So anyways, yeah, looking good. Target's still up. We still got some time left on this bull market, so I think you're arguably good to go there. We can look at some stuff here real quick. Let's set up a couple little things here on the old Bitcoin that I can already foresee probably happen. So if we flip here, I don't know if it's going to be the 15 yet or the 30, but we'll start with the 30. All right, and then we're going to take this guy. We're going to take this guy and these two breakouts. All right, so we've pretty much cycled the 1/5 minute levels of this move. We'll just flip it to a 5 for the most part. That's decent enough. Yeah, okay. Oh, Brandon J, let's go, baby. So yeah, there's my business partner right there for the first time in the live stream, which most of you guys probably are pretty familiar with him or know of him. So I don't really think that's a big surprise to most of you guys. But yeah, so anyways, Bitcoin, again, still got targets up to 120, 130,000. This is all looking pretty decent so far, pretty good. All right. Now, actually, want to probably dive into the VIX next here, so give me a second and I can bring that up. All right, let's move this down and over. Come on, there you go. QQQ looking stretched. No. Yeah, we'll get into it. I kind of know what it looks like a little bit off the top of my head. So what I'm focused on here, and as you can see in the title of today's video, just a dude doing dad stuff. VIX Catalyst Day. So I do foresee today being one of the days that it makes sense to be paying attention to the volatility index a little bit. Obviously, you're always paying attention to it, but today alone, the market is on the 30-minute 50 SMA trend. Now, we had already rejected this trend like last week sometime, maybe 2 weeks ago or so, sometime last week. It looks like close to last week, Wednesday. Yeah. So last week, Wednesday, we had a nice rejection. Just yesterday, we had a little bit of a rejection and then kind of some chop around it. So we're at a situation where the volatility index may be attempting, and it may not, it may just hold down, it may not do a whole lot, but ultimately we are coming into now a price point with the volatility index that makes sense to start opening that discussion, which is the volatility index going to be, essentially breaking up into a buy move, or is volatility going to start uptrending again, at least on the 30-minute scale? So I've added that price level here. It's at 1347. That way, when we flip this over to pre-market chart, you'll see that. All right, so right here, this little horizontal guy, not that it's a whole lot. Obviously prices moving above and below it a little bit. Never is anything going to be totally perfect. But what we do have is we have the volatility index right at the 30-minute trend. This is the over-under. If we start to get above this with acceptance, the market, the volatility index can start pressing into a long move, and you'll start seeing volatility increase, right? So if we are going to see a scenario where volatility starts to break, when I say break out, it's simply just going into an uptrend. All right, so if we start getting that scenario, that does, cause the market to a lot of times pull back, or maybe the long move kind of gets suppressed, and so on and so forth. So if we start seeing this actually kind of go into an uptrend today and break out, then there's a good chance we'll even see the market kind of be stagnant to pullbacks, right? Now, obviously, the one, you could say the one knack about it is that it's the over-under. So again, you can see we had flipped into a downtrend back here, rejected here, stayed into a downtrend, now we're on it. If we can start clearing this, that's where we can start increasing volatility in the market, right? Which a lot of times can pull back the market. Doesn't have to, but a lot of times that's what you can see. And then side note is that in the event you start seeing volatility start to uptrend, then you start to ask the question, well, why is volatility uptrending? Why has there been a change in the volatility index? Why is it increasing? Does that mean it should be pulling back? Is there something else that's brewing that you don't quite see? So on and so forth. So this is sort of an early metric that you can use to know when the markets might be a little bit on edge, even if the market isn't in a selling signal. All right, so if we go over to the SPY real quick, flip this here real quick. We'll get into a couple other things there. Started the stream early. I feel like the market's already about to open, but I started this a little early. All right, so looking at the SPY, we can see that the market is still in a buying operation. So this is kind of always the situation, or what I think about with where we're at now. You see the volatility index, it's at the over-under. It could break up into an uptrend, right? But you'll also see that the SPY isn't downtrending, right? You can see it's clearly over the 50 SMA. So in that regard, whenever the volatility index, say, gets positive on the uptrend, it can cause the market to pull back. But the market itself isn't actually in a sell signal. So again, it's kind of like we use that volatility index at times as an early, trigger that can tell us, hey, though the market's not bearish, this could be a way that we'll be able to top the market a little bit. So it's almost like the buy signal on the VIX starts to scare the market, so the market pulls back, even though it's not downtrending yet, right? It could go into a downtrend later. It could do those things, right? Since the market isn't telling us to be bearish because it's in a buy signal, what are other things that might convince us it could be time to be bearish? Something like the volatility index going into an uptrend, right? So again, market hasn't signaled a sell move. The VIX hasn't even signaled a buy move. We're just getting towards that level that starts to raise the question, right? So if you start to see the volatility index pick up and start booming, right, it's like, well, why is that happening, right? The market's clearly not bearish, so why is the VIX going up, right? So you ask those questions. So to put it simply, we'll track the VIX. Occasionally, we'll get buy signals on the VIX, even though the market isn't in a sell move, and it can be one of those earlier indications that the market is at least attempting a pullback. So, yeah, that's it, And what that looks like on a chart, it could look a million different ways this Sunday. But bottom line, it's just that. VIX goes positive. It helps us say, hey, maybe the market's trying to pull back, even though it's not actually bearish yet. So on and so forth. So it's one of those, and a lot of times if you track it like that, you can find yourselves on the top of moves that roll. Not that you're trying to rail a big short. It's just one of those extra pieces of information to get ahead of the curve a bit sometimes. All right, so that's that. So let's mark this off real quick. Was I not paying attention? I must have not been paying good enough attention the other day on that move. Anyways. All right, we're going to bring this guy back. Actually, let me double check one more thing. 15. Flip this back to the VIX. So again, if we start getting this VIX to break up, we should probably first expect the market might try to pull back a little bit. You don't put all your eggs in a basket on this concept. But yeah, I mean, if again, we start to break up, volatility goes up, it's kind of one of those moments where we might see the market try to pull back some. So we'll see how this all opens up. And again, it's one of those things where it's just a start point level. It could false pop, then drop. I mean, it doesn't even have to break out, but it's like, once you get to that level, you can't sit here and be like, oh, it's not going to, because then the times that it does break out and go, you're like, damn it, of course, right? And then also, let me draw this up for you guys real quick on the VIX. Though it doesn't look like it, I mean, so this is where this could flip long like this. Like that can happen here. Does it? We'll see. But this is where the market could flip long. And then hindsight 2020, you'll end up seeing a pattern that looks something like this, where it's kind of like a head and shoulders reversal. And that's because that 50 SMA can start the uptrend of the VIX. And if it were successful and it had follow through, what you would end up seeing on the chart may look something like that. And then you'd be like, oh, head and shoulders. But it just so happens that today you're kind of flirting with that start point. And again, if you go into an uptrend, then things go up, and then that would be the end result there. The flip side is, of course, you don't do the uptrend, right? And it just ends up staying down, which is totally possible, right? So that's kind of where we're at in terms of the VIX. Don't want to get everyone too excited about that, but it would be cool if there was a little bit of a trend change there, just so we can all kind of watch it in real time today. It would be cool. And yesterday, it's funny, yesterday I got offline just before the market on the VIX did some cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that was fun. So like yesterday, so I think yesterday was cool because what ended up happening a little bit later in the day was just this. This is what I thought was cool. You see this right here? So this is the 15 minute. See the 15 minute? There's that 50 SMA. So we're going to mark that off. And then we're going to go to the 30 minute. And we're going to look at the 50 SMA. And we're going to mark this off. And I know it doesn't look like much, but it was pretty cool. So now we'll go into like a 1 minute, right? So this is a lot of times what we'll see when we start getting a breach of important levels. So this lower half down here, that's the 15-minute 50 SMA uptrend, and the one on the top is the 30-minute 50 SMA level. So yesterday we put the 15-minute into a long move to go track down the 30-minute. The 30-minute couldn't obviously sustain its long, so it ends up coming back down, which then keeps the market on the VIX still downtrending. So pretty much all of this up here was just rejection of the 30-minute, keeping that VIX down, which then leads us into this morning. And so if we do end up breaking this out, we might see a little bit of a give on the market. We'll see. So we started getting some activation there yesterday, which was cool. All right, I'm going to take this back and I remember it was a 4-hour chart, draw a line 1 year, 1 day, and it's still all this, but this is more used for I think this actually works a lot. I mean, it's all really the same stuff, just like the 4-hour, 1 line here, 1 line here. It's the same thing. You have a 30-minute and a 15-minute, one's here and one here. It's literally the same thing, just in moving average concept. So this was another thing that kind of really helped me in terms of timing with things. So that was kind of always where I might have been a little not as good, and now it's again, it's the timing of things is much better now. So that was kind of a big help for me. I mean, dojis do give us signals, but they can also be false at times, so we'll see. Okay, all right, so looking at the market, today's market is kind of meh. It's not very good yet. And partly because, and when I say it's not very good, it's just in terms of the pre-market, it's kind of meh. You don't really have clear direction this morning pre-market in terms of a trend going this way, trend going that way. So nothing's really kind of picked up. See, like yesterday, you kind of had some trend direction. Same thing with even, this morning, there was a little bit of a trend move down. This morning, you had a nice trend move up. This morning, a trend move down. So you don't really have much of a trend. It's all just kind of pops sideways for the moment. That doesn't mean that the day won't end up having a good move. It's just, as far as the pre-market goes, it's been a little wonky. All right, so we're basically going to be like this for the moment, which, yeah, coming to this 5-minute leg of that. Don't really need that there. Well, those are all going to change, but yeah. So today's going to be interesting. It's going to be, yeah, it's an interesting setup, like I said. And a lot of it has to do with that VIX. If we end up rejecting that VIX 30-minute, the market's just going to press off into another long, obviously remaining on the long bias move with the buy signal. If we can flip the VIX, then we might be, a little bit early to the market having a pullback. So it's just kind of one of those days. It's kind of interesting. So we'll see if we get some good action with it. And sometimes I get a little too excited when the VIX is transitioning the 30-minute, because there's been times where, it doesn't amount to too much. Some stuff, but like specifically, it's like I remember this couple months back when the volatility index was in a buy signal and it just kept going up and up, and the market just would not come down. And I'm like, this is setting up for a market squeeze at this point, because the volatility index had been up for so long already and the market wasn't going down. And I'm like, so what's going to happen is if the market doesn't go into a sell signal here soon after the VIX has been up for so long, the VIX is then going to go into a sell signal itself, and then the market's just going to squeeze off the highs. And I made some posts about it a while ago, but that was a really cool situation, because it was just one of those moments you're like, okay, the VIX has been in a buy signal for 2 weeks and the market's like chopped to the upside. You're like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So which market's wrong? And then from there it was like, well, if the volatility index is wrong, then as soon as it goes into a sell signal, the market's going to squeeze out. And that's exactly what happened. So that was cool. Now, this is a little bit different because the market hasn't been in the VIX hasn't been in a buy signal. It's like it could just be starting one. So again, it's one of those moments where the market's you got to pay close attention today. Might be a little early signal of some sorts. Freaking eye itches. Do you have any thoughts on Bitcoin? Yeah, I got plenty of thoughts on Bitcoin. Bitcoin, our price target is 120 to 135,000. That could still change, and it would most likely change in prices getting higher as each new week comes along, because our targets are based off a weekly scale for the moment. So anywhere from 120 to 135,000 right now is kind of our target zone. We have anywhere from 100 to 300 days left of the bull market. So we don't expect any bear market top, any real significant top for Bitcoin for at least another 100 days to 300 days. So I know it's a wide window, but I'm being a little bit on the cautious side of that part of it. We have sell targets on Bitcoin in the long term down to 43,000. That will change. That's already, it's almost dumb saying that price because I know it's going to change. So I should just be more forward looking and say there's sell targets down to 50,000, maybe 55,000. We have some futures gaps that have been left open on the Bitcoin market. I think there's a few of them. I'd have to go and double check. I don't know them exactly off the top of my head, but there's a few futures gaps for Bitcoin to the downside. I think, I don't know, maybe towards like, I could find them in a second, but pretty much there's also gaps on the futures markets of Bitcoin to the downside that, again, most gaps fill. Do they have to? No. But in thinking, longer term, if there is a need for a pullback or a market correction, there are things down that low in terms of gaps. So, again, long-term projections, we have sell targets maybe down to, again, 40-something thousand, 50,000. Bull market for another 100 to 300 days. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's also some short-term stuff we can talk about, but in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty much it. And I myself have been bullish on Bitcoin pretty much since the last bottom around like 20K as we came into there. And I've been, kind of pounding on Bitcoin the whole way up. Haven't told anybody to basically sell it. And it's not that you should be holding or selling, and it's not really the point. It's just, I've stuck on the bullish trend for Bitcoin since pretty much the last bottom around 20K. I don't foresee a need to be extremely bearish or on the side of, the market's going to pull back really hard for at least another 100 to 300 days from now. Also, I think this is a good mention here, at least a little bit of a review. MSTR. Okay, so I want to walk through this guy. So we're all probably smart enough here that we know that when Bitcoin moves, MSTR moves, so on and so forth. We're all pretty much on board with that. Maybe not a perfect one-to-one all the time, but in general terms, that's kind of how it goes, right? So yesterday we had Bitcoin go up. It's over 100K now, so on and so forth. Whether it was Powell talking about Bitcoin, whether it was some news that broke wherever, whatever, who really knows, right? But it's a mix of all of that. Now, yesterday, what do we see with MSTR? So I'm going to start here, MSTR, 50 SMA. Now, look at this, right? The previous day, it popped over, came under, then it popped over. So it's like, it's not a perfect system, but you just know that it is a shift point. Just in the chart, it's kind of that midway shift point where bullish activity is more likely to try or, succeed, as opposed when you're on the downside, right? Same thing here, right? You can see over, positive, under, snap, bounce, roll, down, attempt to break out, fail, down, down. And then just yesterday, we were able to break over the 50 SMA off the back of Powell talking about it, off the back of Bitcoin moving up for whatever reasons, right? So just yesterday, we got a little positive here on MSTR over the 50 SMA. So I noticed this yesterday, just a bit after it broke out. I noticed it about 390. So I've been kind of sitting on MSTR in this down cycle that we just got off this high. And I've been kind of waiting for it to start, because it's kind of been pulling back even though Bitcoin's been going up. And I noticed yesterday after it broke out, it started kind of moving with Bitcoin's price again. So I kind of figured it was probably a decent suggestion and mention. So anyways, yesterday MSTR broke over the price of 383.29, where that starts an uptrend. So 383.29 was in fact the price point of the 50 SMA, right there. So as we get over that, that's where we could start signaling and attracting bullish activity. You have Bitcoin moving very successfully. So Bitcoin's moving well yesterday, going up strong, and then you also get a breakout of the 50 SMA on MSTR after it's been beaten down off these highs, right? Kind of a situation where it probably is going to have some follow through. So anyways, yesterday mentioned on Twitter, I just got offline after with you guys. So, you're late. I don't want to say you're late, but in terms of the short-term stuff, right? The uptrend started yesterday at 383. We have a gap up here today. So this market is already up 15% from that uptrend start just yesterday. So in terms of high frequency trading computers and this and blah, 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 that's already a 15% gaining trade from that breakout spot. Could it go more? Sure, but I'm not here to really talk about that. The concept is really just to mention, hey guys, see how that kind of works. You see how the market was below the 50 SMA downtrending. You get a day where Bitcoin starts to move well. You get a breakout of the 50 SMA, and here you go. You're up 15%, right? Versus trying to buy MSTR on the day that it's breaking down the 50 SMA. So think about it like that. Here's a day where it's selling down and breaks at 50 SMA. Not as good as a buying opportunity, arguably, as a day where Bitcoin's pumping up and we're coming up through the 50 SMA on the long side, right? So a little bit of a kind of a little teaching lesson there, I think was worthy. Playing coin today. Actually, let's take a look at that. It's 9:20. We got a few minutes here. So coin, yeah. So like coin started a long move. That started a long move was on Tuesday. And it's like this is a 30-minute chart, but I will say this. Like even here, right? So the last, and you see how many times it's kind of flipped the 30, then it kind of failed. See, it's like it's not a perfect system. Obviously, high frequency trading computers and things and algorithms are going to be far more fast with this stuff, but I mean it works, to a degree, and I think it works well enough, right? You can see positive up over, break below, positive up over, break below, positive up over, right? You did have a choppy scenario here. But I will say this last long move on coin has been working, right? So you've kind of been chopping, but this right here, and I will highlight it. This is the last long move that I'm talking about right here. So this whole long move from getting over that 50 SMA. And you'll actually see that the candle that breaches over the 50 SMA here and closes above is pretty much a huge bullish engulfing candle right there, which engulfs 1 to 5 hours of action there. So it's kind of an interesting bullish engulfing, and then you do end up getting a little mini flag pattern that ends up working like that. So you basically start an uptrend over the 50 SMA with the bullish engulfing on the 30-minute with a 30-minute bull flag over the 50 SMA support. There's your breakout. There's probably even another little whack bull flag or whatever, and continuing up. So obviously you can kind of see those little patterns in there, but ultimately, right, we got a 30-minute uptrend start, and as a result of the market going into an uptrend that so far has been somewhat successful, you're seeing the formation of bullish patterns within that uptrend, right? So anyways, that one did end up working. So, but that's also because Bitcoin's kind of moving too, so it all kind of moves hand in hand. But yeah, so it's not like you're at the start of an uptrend start, but and you have a huge gap up today, I mean, so it's like, it's one of those things where you have to just kind of, a trend can keep going, sure, but you're not like at the starting point. The starting point was on Tuesday, I think, Tuesday of that uptrend at least. I would honor it. Yeah, if you why can I, oh, there we go. Yeah, I would honor the Black Friday code if you would like. I guess, you know what, I'll do that here real quick. Black Should be all lowercase too, Black Friday. 4. And then I probably need to get this. Black Friday 2024. Oh, I was supposed to put the link to the website. There it is. I haven't really paid too much attention to the quantum stuff, and that's just mainly because I am always kind of so focused or tunnel visioned on the market and or like Bitcoin currently alone. So like there's this, and that's what it is. I'm just very hyper focused on the market, VIX, that I just don't look too much for. Nope, we still have the standard deviation channel. We've gone over it a couple times with some other things, so we still use that 100%. Yeah, so I mean, me personally, I just, I think the next good time for crypto again, and this is always there's always the voice in the back of your head, right? Which is, everyone always says, well, we've had these cycles repeat in the crypto market for some time, and obviously there's a discussion, will it last for forever? Like these cycles always repeat, with relatively close correlation to the past, and if they were to continue doing that, then for me it's like MSTR, GBTC, Riot, Mara, Robinhood, any of those equities would be, you should be picking them up at the end of 2026 or beginning of 2027. So it's like, to me, we're kind of deep in this current cycle that if cycles correlate to past cycles, this isn't really the great time to be picking up these equities. That being said, if cycles didn't repeat, then you basically get on and hopefully you're not too late kind of concept. So you never know, but we're a little extended in the current cycle that yes, there's probably a lot of upside even with some of these stocks, but I think planning ahead for the next big cycles almost better than chasing up equities currently. That being said, they're probably still going to go up. But I'm anything coin, Hood, Riot, GBTC, MSTR, big or new position concept stuff, I would be planning for at least 2 years out now. I think if you own it now, just let it run up. Same thing with like Bitcoin, because it's hard for me to emphasize, go buy all these things when we're already so far into the cycle. I was saying buy Bitcoin, and it doesn't matter even what I say. There's plenty of people that talk about this stuff too, but as far as those crypto go and that thing, I was hammering the table back when it was 20K and 30K, but so let's just hope some of these cycles repeat and correlate similar to the past, and then next time it's on a huge sale, I'll come online and tell you guys to load up the boat. But now for me isn't the time to load up the boat. Now is the time for people to blow the price up for a lot of people. But I don't want to be that one. There's no input settings. The open, high, low, close 4 chart is just open, high, low, close, and then the 50 SMA is just a 50 SMA. And then if you're on the 30 minute, so, but yeah, so again, real quick, that's the way I see the crypto market. I think, if cycles kind of rhyme and repeat a little bit, then we're going to be looking a couple of years out for some bottom picking. Right now, we're kind of in the bull run. People are excited. They're getting more excited. So we'll just kind of let that portion of the market continue to run things up for us, right? Versus us being the ones that basically buy it up for someone else, right? So right now, we're going to let the markets force up, do their thing, let other people ram the price up for us. And if we're lucky enough to see some rhyme between the past cycles, then we'll be looking, pretty good in the next 2 years or so for some bottom picking opportunities. All right, so we'll flip this back to the SPY because obviously we're getting closer to market open. All right, so the narrative we're probably going to go with today is staying long biased the market until or if any point we see a buy signal kickoff on the VIX. If so, then maybe we'll switch narrative. But again, we're still in a buy signal on the market. We have not been signaled to really be bearish the market. There's just some early things that might take place. So in that sense, again, we're primarily going to be on the long side of the market until something tells us that it wants to change, whether that be the market itself, market internals, or the VIX. Okay? And where's the chat? There it is. It's funny. Todd, to answer your question about the 50 SMA 30-minute examples, this would be one of them. The strategy has kind of wavered a little bit. The more I showed people, the less it started to work, but it still has some value that I like. So maybe one day it'll come a little bit back more in style, but again, the more I teached it, the less it started working, as per usual with most things. But, well, anyways, market's getting going, so I'm going to get back to here. Take off this. And again, we haven't really been signaled of anything too bearish. Let me just double check a couple other things. I've been chatting kind of a lot this morning, so I could have maybe missed some things, but I don't think so. And I may have started this morning kind of like on that whole bearish talk, but it's just one of those things. It's like it's important because the VIX is at key levels, so you kind of have to bring that in the back of your head. I would say this morning is not necessarily the greatest looking chart setup, but I've been proven otherwise on days like this. Let's double check that. That's weird. It's a big one. Hold on, I'm setting up a couple other things here, guys. Sorry. All right, so again, keep your eyes on the VIX right now. It's definitely important. Let me see what the market internals were. My market, where are them boys at? Market internals are, I mean, it's early, but not, I don't know, don't have a great vibe on it. I mean, they're not extremely bullish, not extremely bearish yet. The FANG are kind of putting in a little bit of a red candle. I wonder if that continues. Let's see. QQQs, NASDAQ, those are okay. Kind of slightly mixed for the moment. Again, we've only been open for 3 minutes, so there isn't really much trend to go off of here with these guys. All right. I'm really just focused mainly on this volatility index right now. Yeah, see, actually, with the new open and the way that candles updated, the VIX is actually above the 50 SMA now. So we've kind of just like opened and now we're just sitting above it. So the market's arguably kind of on tilt. And I'll show you what this looks like. So like right here, with the way that the SMA calculates its moves down, and with today's open on the VIX, it's actually put the volatility index just slightly over the 50 SMA here at 1346. Which is kind of sketchy, but so far there isn't like really any follow through off of it. We're just kind of hanging out. I don't necessarily like, go over the future. I don't really talk about the future prices as much. I really just do the analysis on like QQQ and SPY and things like that, because the ES is normally just ES or NQ is pretty much just going to move whatever, you know, they're going to move like SPY or QQQ. So I don't really do the analysis on those, because what happens on the SPY and the QQQ is pretty much what's going to happen for the market. Or sorry, yeah, what happens on SPY and QQQ is going to pretty much be what happens on ES and what have you. So I find the ETFs, SPY and QQQ, to be more reliable in working with than that of futures when it comes to analysis stuff. All right, so, you know, right now the market internals, I mean, they're kind of meh. I mean, you can see, I'll bring them up, and it's not that the market won't keep working here, but again, we're kind of rolled over on the SPY issues, rolled over on NASDAQ issues, flat sideways here, little roll on the NYSE, so it's not like we have like a great trend just yet for a lot of these things, and the VIX is still sitting over that 30-minute 50 SMA. So market internals aren't really moving in a way that should blow this market up on a long yet. And the VIX is still over the buy signal. So the market's still kind of on tilt here, guys. It's not just like screaming long to me. Now, does that change? We'll see. Right now, I'd be on the fence with anything long bias just because, look at it, right? Things are kind of rolling down on market internals, and you have the volatility index, which I'll bring over just slightly, which is, I know it doesn't look like much, but it's this little yellow line, right? So basically, if we're over this yellow line, that's positive for the VIX, not good for the market. And you can see market internals are coming down. So it's kind of just like one of those situations where it's just not a great long, right? And I said we're going to be pretty much remaining long bias this morning because the market's in a buy signal as long as the VIX stays below, but it's not below. So it's kind of like you're kind of like hands off right now on the long because there's too many opposing arguments for me right now. Now that could change, and one of the things that I would be looking for that to change is this market on the VIX to break back below 1346. Unless that happens, the long is it's not what you want right now. And these things can change so quickly. I hate saying it like that because things can change so quickly, but again, this is a situation where the market is not screaming long, guys. All right. Now again, does it change? We're going to find out. And this is what I was telling you before. It's like the market is in the actual SPY is not in a sell move, right? We're not bearish. But the volatility index just today is starting to creep through levels, which means the VIX is going to get bullish. And if the VIX gets bullish, that's negative for the market. So though the market isn't signaling that it's actually bearish, the VIX could be signaling, hey, we might get bearish because the volatility index, the fear of that market is starting to trigger. It's starting to rise a bit. Why? Don't know, but it is, right? And so when you start seeing that, it tells me to be cautious on the market, even though the market itself didn't tell me anything. Though the market didn't tell me that it's bearish, because there's nothing saying that, its partner in crime is saying it, right? It's saying, hey, this might be time to be hands off long, slightly bearish. And again, it's all kind of based around that VIX and some of these market internals, right? When I look at the market internals, there's nothing moving long yet. It's just down, sideways down, small pop, down, down, and a little bounce, right? So, right, that's going to have to change. The market internals across all these are going to have to start bouncing, and this VIX to break down this 1347. And if that can happen, you'll see the market change. But until that happens, it's beyond the sell side for your micro trading right now. Hence, you can see that the market popped up and then slammed down. You can see that the QQQ pushed up, then slammed down. That's because as soon as the market opened, there was a little bit of green movement, but then it just flipped right to red, and your volatility index is not doing what you want for markets to just keep going up for the moment. Markets can diverge the VIX. That happens at times. But initially, you got to let the volatility index, kind of have some say in the game. We need to break below consolidation before we are bearish. I guess I would probably agree with that. All right, so like right here, you're starting to see like the SPY internals turn around. You're starting to get some NASDAQ internals to turn around. NYSE is moving around. Now you would arguably want to see the FANG. If the FANG turn into a long press, that would actually kind of help this scenario. But those are still lagging behind right now. And you still, again, have the VIX, which is currently upsided on a long press. Yeah, so the other thing too, Merrick, so for me too, I don't necessarily look at consolidations, I do and I don't, but I personally, for I would say years now, haven't really looked at consolidation as a metric to be bearish. I usually just look at trends to be bearish. So yeah, we got different way of looking at being bearish. Because again, a lot of times if you're waiting for something to break, like consolidation, you could arguably be, I don't want to say late, but a lot of times the move starts before that too. So I don't know. I don't really look at consolidation for breaks personally. I look at market internals, trend, and or oversought or overbought conditions. Yes. But let's see what you're talking about. You said 6,000. Yeah, let's see, but 6091, let's see where that's at. Come on, computer. 6091. Yeah, so you're looking at, you're basically looking at the entire overnight session. 6091. Yeah, you're basically looking at the entire overnight session, right? In the hopes that everyone buying every single one of those dips gets stopped out, and then you'll see a panic sell. All right, that's kind of what you're hoping for. And meanwhile, what I'm looking at here is, since the price of the market is over 1346 on the volatility index is trying to start an uptrend, and if successful, this will top the market. So using the uptrend start potential on the VIX to look in the micro and immediate bearish the market. So, though the market hasn't broken something down, the VIX is saying, hey, maybe the market can be a little bearish on this high. So we're actually using a VIX market to time the overall market currently, versus looking at the overall market and having that being the dictating factor today, where eyes are on the VIX to use for the market today. And then, of course, the market internals, which right now, the market internals have kind of turned around, right? So, like, you need the FANG. The FANG would have to turn around here for us, and then the market can actually kind of like stay up. I know I'm not looking at finite things for us right now, but yeah. Market internals would be, you can just take a screenshot of this if you're looking, or just write these down. These are the ones I pay attention to. So I'll leave this up for a second or two. I guess that did work, huh? All right, cool. That's good. All right, so this is, again, we're not be all end all bearish for the moment, right, guys? Because again, there's a lot to cover, but you guys get the point. So we're kind of, this is where I see us next in the micro, is you're waiting for some of those market internals to turn around. And then you might actually see this market press off long. And that's, again, because we're not in a sell move. We're not in actual sell move. And it would be early to think that you can just tank the market. You would really need the VIX to blow off. So this is another scenario I'm kind of looking at this moment. Is arguably a VIX to, if the VIX, we can fail the VIX to at least a back test of 1346, we should see a long press off on the market. So this is the other scenario we're kind of watching in the immediate, is this here. Is the VIX to come back down to this 1346, and that's going to result in the market kind of pressing off into a little bit of a long. Now I'm actually going to start kind of getting into some of this smaller time frame stuff here. All right. And then again, we need the market internals to turn around, which are over here. Cool. Which they're kind of not. They're just kind of meh. They're just kind of hanging out. You really need the FANG. You basically need the FANG, and then we'll start working this long back up. So, like, what are the deciding metrics for a trade if it's not a hard level? Kind of like that. I mean, I guess we kind of, yeah, I mean, today's kind of been a day where I haven't given finite levels because none of, in my opinion, have really set up quite like that. But so like this is something. I mean, I'll bring this back over. So if you're looking at the market internals, right? So like, what are the market internals saying right now? They're saying, what's really running this long up? You see how this market has bounced a little bit here? I mean, what's really doing it? Because there isn't a lot of green on the S&P 500. There isn't a lot of green on the NASDAQ. There really isn't much green here. A little bit on NASDAQ 100. There's slight green here on the FANG. There's almost no green on the NYSE for that last push. So it's like, why is that push happening, number one? So it's either the market is leading what's about to happen and it just hasn't been signaled on the market internals. So like this is what I would be looking at here for some confidence to keep pressing the market up on this push would be these FANG. Mainly this, right? I would like to see this turn to a positive move and even the MAC change. So if you start seeing positivity on the FANG names, then your major market cap stocks are getting positive, and then that would help lead this long move up. But without those, this top right here would struggle, right? So that would be one little like minuscule thing you watch is positivity across the FANG, and that can help continue the long press that you're currently seeing. Some days it will be targets to pre-market levels, but today we didn't really have any good pre-market levels to target. Some days it will be Fibonacci, but I think we didn't really open with much of a gap today. Yeah, see, like today we didn't really open with much of a gap, so Fibonacci's kind of meh today, right? So I didn't really use much Fibonacci metrics because there wasn't really much to go off of, even though we did hit our Fibonacci target, almost. Because our target would have been 6,088. So the market had pretty much completed the long target to the 161 on the SPY or SPX this morning. So it's like Gap strategy, not really available today. Pre-market, volume-weighted average price levels, not really available today. The only thing for me that's available today that is in my arsenal that I would pay attention to would pretty much be the volatility index at the 50 SMA, and right now market internals, along with some like 1 minute or 5 minute stuff, which I'm putting on the chart right now, which tells me the market has a potential pullback to basically where that yellow line's at. I'll put a box here. So this is where our current like little bit of a 1 minute chart reset pullback is targeting. Sometimes they'll shy it, but ultimately, you know, and this might be wrong because we kind of broke structure here, but anyways. So right now, that would be your 1 minute pullback price in the event we don't just blow right up. And let me bring back over the market internals real quick. I mean, there's so much to it, but again, it's all just basically doing your best to read momentum and all of those things in real time. All right, so like, what are we seeing? I mean, honestly, I don't even know why the market's holding up this long for the second. To be honest, I don't know why that's holding up so well. I would assume this is about to pull back and hit that target that I was talking about. See, look at the market. Like, look at the SPY issues rolling down, NYSE rolling down, rolling down, rolling down. I mean, nothing is really long. So it's like, why is this? It's not. See, boom, right there. So though that didn't look like a lot, and granted, that's not a huge move right there, but in the immediate, I can see, why is the market even holding this long up? It makes no sense. Hence, should go down. That's if the market is. And it's very rare that like when I say it should go down, it's very rare that you look at market internals and everything's going down and the market's going up. 9 times out of 10, that won't happen because the market, like, it's real to an extent, right? Like, if everything's selling down, the market's not going to go up. It just doesn't work that way. So in that real time, I could kind of see there's weakness in every area of the market. So it's less likely that this micro long is going to persist, right? It should more likely pull down. Then maybe it finds support and it does all this and whatever, right? But in that moment in time, I could easily look at all that and go, market should not go up right there. And that could be a dictating factor for a micro short that maybe goes and leads to something bigger, right? So that's what I would look at right there. You know, so, you know, like I said, like when I walked into this day, and hold on, yeah, the QQQ is just, and so and look at this too. Hold on, so real quick, take the formation of the SPY, right? You see how the SPY is kind of like, it's not really broken lows yet, but look at the SPY issues here. They haven't broken lows, but if you look at the NASDAQ issues, they've broken lows. Those are going lower. So if you go look at the QQQ, you're going to see that this is through low a day. So look at how QQQ has gone up, lower, like even, and then to a new low. Now, if you look at the market internals that specifically relate to that market, that's exactly what their formation looks like to a degree, right? You look over here, this one is down to low. This one broke the previous low, and the FANG names have been kind of rolling down low, right? So most of what would contribute to the price action formation on the QQQ are lower low to new low of day on issues. If you look at the issues that would most likely relate to the SPY, those would be like NYSE and some of this the S&P issues, right? So you look at those guys; those aren't below lows, not yet. So when you go and contribute that to the price patterns, you can kind of see how there should be that difference in correlation, or why they look the way they do, as they correlate to their specific underlying advancing, declining markets like that. So yes, I don't see anything right now that screams long. The only thing I saw there, remember when this long was pressing up here? The only thing I saw was like, maybe if the FANG names turn around, then this long can persist. Without those, it can't. And then I pretty much just came to the conclusion it can't go long, right? So then there's your dump. And then that little blue box was just the 1 minute micro target, meaning everybody that longed this last dip, their average price is going to be somewhere in that blue. So if you want to screw over everyone that bought that last long, you roll it down to that blue, if not further, and you'll take them all out of their trade. And that's the objective of the market a lot of times. is to go back and forth to and from liquidity and stop people out and so on and so forth. Hey, 50-something concurrent viewers. Let's go, baby. That's the biggest I've seen in a long time. It's funny. I remember the days with hundreds and hundreds. Those were fun days. But I guess that's what happens when you actually come online for once and actually stream for a couple days in a row and people actually know you exist. That's kind of how that works, right? So I appreciate you guys tuning in. It's been fun past 2 weeks almost now. But yeah. All right. 1033, huh? So Bitcoin's kind of moving back up a little bit. Hey, give me old yank and spank, baby. Give him the old yank and spank. Hold on, let me look at something. What am I gonna do? What was I gonna do? What was I doing? I don't know. Don't remember. Oh yes, now I do. MSTR, absolutely cooker magoo, baby. Right? So, you know, this is kind of, I'm not even going to get into it. I don't really care enough to get into it. All right, so hold up. The market, I'm wondering if this is interesting, all right, because we just got the VIX down to the 30-minute now. So the market might do a scammy, like, awkward long press right here. So if you're shorting, be careful. It's a weird moment. I mean, I know the market internals look like absolute dog right now, so I don't want to jump the gun on that, but just oh, where'd they go? Over there. Here we go. I'm wondering if they're about to just do some weird long press right here. I know it doesn't feel, it just feels like the market internals on the FANG are not really, I don't know, dude. Something tells me they're going to do something scummy here, but I don't know. It's a little early. And the reason I'm saying this is because this right here. So you see, it's probably too soon to tell. I don't want to get too excited about it in the way it's acting already, but basically we're just starting to flip that 50 SMA back down. So the market on the VIX can't quite get positive yet. It's not quite breaking and triggering volatility. So if it doesn't trigger volatility and it actually breaks back down, then it could be used as a metric for a long idea. But so far, the market internals are like, I don't care. Volume's going up. SPY issues are going back up. NYC is going back up. You're even getting a little bit of a bottom move back up on the Qs and a little bit of the NASDAQ 100. So you need the FANG. It's only the FANG right now. You see how the SPY is kind of just sitting up and sideways? It's the FANG that are just dropping off a cliff right now, which is why it's dragging everything for the moment. And so again, that VIX is still flirting with the uptrend. So again, it's one of those days where there's just opposing arguments and things are just a little awkward. Nice, easy. Yeah, like that's the market right now that's moving enough, is the QQQ market for sure. I never use, I don't know. I feel like the VIX lines on TO or on TradingView are so out of whack. I don't even use them. I just look at Thinkorswim for that. I never use the volatility index on the Qs or on TradingView. Again, those FANG names are really just bleeding out the move, which again is completely fine. That's doesn't you know, but Okay, the VIX, man. The VIX is being interesting. It's just at such an interesting spot. It's definitely struggling to really break out that 30-minute, but I've seen crazier things. It can come and, you know. And so, you know, what I'm really getting at is anybody using the VIX for, you know, for direction right now. I mean, this thing's one of two ways. Oh, there's even a gap there. Ooh, that's interesting. So is that going to be setting up for a long VIX with a pop to sell? We do actually have a little bit of a gap fill at the VIX for 1352, so they might be setting up a support bounce on the VIX now, which should send the market down a little bit. Again, I'll show you what I'm looking at here. So if we look at where the 50 SMA is at, again, it's kind of an interesting one. So 50 SMA is right here, 1346. You actually have a gap to fill here. So we've essentially started this morning up now with a back test of potential support right here. And if support holds, they'll most likely move this market back into at least 1352 in the VIX. And that will go for a back test of that. So that's kind of interesting. Like I was saying, is like if anybody's using the VIX right now, if they break the VIX down, it's going to cause this market to kind of pop into a long. See that? You see how it's just pushed right back up? And part of that for me is just this. We're right at that 50 SMA. So see how we're no longer, I know it's minuscule, we're no longer above the 50 SMA, we're breaking it down. So volatility is failing to hold that uptrend. So anybody being bearish the market because they think the VIX is going into a long, with it breaking back down, it means the VIX is not going up and then it squeezes up like that. And so that was what I was kind of thinking about, this scummy, random, long move. Again, I just kind of feel like shorts were getting trapped here a little bit. And so look at this next candle. You see how this next candle on the VIX just opened up on the 30, and where is it? It's below the 50 SMA. Right there. Again, it's a very awkward day, but and there's a lot of reading that's going on. So this, and I know I'm saying a lot, and I talk a lot, and there's a lot going on, and there's another gap there. So they're setting something up here because I can see it. So this might be used later in the. They're going to be used later in the future. But you see how the market just got squeezed up there, right? So in that moment. Right, in that moment where this market's kind of like curling and basically doing a little scummy pop, look at this 30-minute, right? The 30-minute was deciding, does it want to break over and pick up in volatility? If so, the market could fall apart a little bit. But if it doesn't, then everyone being bearish the market because of the VIX, if the VIX doesn't cooperate in the way that it needs, it's going to push them out of the market. And so for me, I would visualize what just happened there, that scummy pop that we're kind of thinking could happen is really in relation to the VIX in that moment sort of failing that trend. So anyone using the VIX market to be bearish got pushed out there because we're not getting that positivity on the VIX this morning. Again, I know that's a lot to take in. Some may like it, some may not. You know, I just do the best I can here. And now, again, look at the market internals. Remember I said the market internals are starting to turn around. I'm like, the SPY issues are picking up. The NASDAQ issues are picking up. NYSE is picking up. And now it's all about the FANG. Look at that long press, baby. That's good. Again, I'm like, it just feels scummy. It feels like a scummy pop is about to come. And it was primarily because I figured we're going to break that VIX down. It just didn't feel like the long was holding. It needed a back test. Not to mention, too, look at the direction of the trend. It's slanted. The 50 SMA is slanted downwards. So when the 50 SMA is slanted downwards, a lot of times you want it to be sideways or uptrending on the breakups. And, you know, literally, you know, we cover this stuff on repeat like every day. So it's not that it's anything new. It's just those are all the things you got to, you know, relatively pay attention to. Yeah, so looking at the market internals, okay, so the QQQ, not the QQQ, but the FANG. The FANG just got their first little glimpse of positive momentum. So if this works, if the momentum actually kind of works here on the FANG, you should see QQQ even continue on this bounce. So we'll see if it plays nice and gives follow through or not. But again, this is the first little positive momentum change across the FANG names for the day. And it's still early in the day, so, you know, if the markets want to play nice, they'll allow the Qs to bounce off the FANG with some positivity here. And then you also have the ES and you have the SPY leading into highs. So the momentum on those guys is okay. You really just want at least some follow through momentum on the FANG off their bounce. And if so, it can help lead the Qs up here just a little bit. There you see that candle increase there on the Qs, increase again. I know it doesn't look like much, but in the micro real time, you're seeing momentum change back into FANG names on the positive side. How much this can lead is always the question. But you know, like that's one signal I'd look at, right? So we were bearish all morning, the FANG, and here they're getting a little positive. Now, if we go look at the FANG names, that's probably because they were down and now they started bouncing a bit, things like that. So if we go look at Apple, right, Apple was sold down, started kind of bouncing a bit. Same thing with probably Nvidia, down, starting to bounce a bit. Microsoft, down, little bounce. Google, down, little bounce, right? Amazon, just not really that. Meta, down, little bounce. So you basically need those FANG names to recover off their lows and keep kind of trending out to help that Qs continue trending out right now. If they don't, then obviously your long is just going to be that long bounce, won't have great continuation, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. So that's kind of the spiel. That's what's happening in real time. You can clearly see that. And you see how they shrugged it off there, right? Well, so far, right? They've almost shrugged off that little MAC change. And like I said, MAC and momentum isn't a be-all, end-all indicator, but those are some things you have to think of, you know. It's like, clearly the FANG run the market. If they're not positive by any means, then you can't really expect momentum to persist in the positive side for QQQ, right? But on the back end, you have the SPY issues running really well. You have NYSE issues. Those have been moving really well. Again, that's partially why we're leading that long up there on, what's it called? ES and SPY and all that good stuff. Side note, too, I am still paying very close attention to this guy here. Again, we're still paying very close attention to this VIX. We really need that to kind of, for anything in the market to really change to bearish, we're going to need us to basically pick up on the VIX and recover some levels and all this good stuff. So we'll be paying attention again to, where is it at? It's not far off, very close. And so like today, tomorrow, as long as the market is flirting with this 30-minute 50 SMA, we're going to be on the fence that, you know, things can shake up. Tradovat being slow. QQQ, rollover dump. Not really surprised. You know, and I would have to say, like, I apologize for talking about that little mini MAC start there. But, I mean, those are those early signs you have to pay attention to if you're going to see anything really change. But, you know, hindsight 2020 is always perfect, too, in this instance, which you can see it's right. Look at, literally, FANG, down. Look at your Qs, down, right? Same concept. Bitcoin, 103,000 and something's nice. You know, this might be a good time to talk about the title of today's video, Stock Market Today, VIX Catalyst Day, Market in Buying Operation Still. So, the market itself is still a long bias market in terms of trend. So just because we're getting a little bearish pullback on the QQQ doesn't mean the market's actually bearish, okay? We don't have a sell trend yet in effect for QQQ or the SPY. and we don't have a buy signal in effect for the VIX. Those could change, but for the moment, the market is still in a buying operation and hasn't triggered a selling operation yet. So again, what we're looking at in the real time is just some short-term volatility and moves that the market can make, but in the swing perspective, the market is still in a long swing right now. And what we use to kind of differentiate between trend change does not pick tops, right? So that's all different stuff. Overbought or oversold metrics are oversold strategies. Overextended, overbought, oversold. Those are different strategies than trend strategies. Trend says we're still in a long. Trend has nothing to do with an overbought moment, right? You could find an overbought move that's still in a long bias trend that then pulls back off the high, but then stays in an uptrend, right? All right, picked up there in the QQQ. Again, you're seeing a little bit of that positivity come back in the FANG there. You can see that pretty clear as day. Again, we had a nice little 3 structure candle up on the FANG names. A little bit of positive MAC. Again, so you're having that little Momo shift there in the bottom, hence why Qs pop. You can see that. All right, Corey, have a good one. Thanks for tuning in and stopping in today. SPY holding sideways while NQ selling off would make me think if NQ gets a bounce, SPY pushes. I mean, yeah, I was tilted a little bit on that side of the QQQ, kind of playing the bounce catch up, just because, I don't know, I kind of just figured, if we get a little bit of positivity on those max on the micro for the FANG names, we should see a little bouncing on the Qs. That's kind of what we're getting. Still don't really think it's anything as an amazing kind of market this morning. Like I said, a lot of the strategies that I look at aren't really even we're about to do a new all-time high on Bitcoin. Let's freaking go, baby. Jeez, everyone doubted the old pupperoo last year when we said $130,000 target. Well, it was actually really like 110 to 120 then. Now it's 120 to 135. But everyone doubted the old pupperoo. But then next thing you know, everyone's price target turned into the pupperoo's price target. Nah, just kidding. But it's been a fun roll with the old Bitcoin this last couple of years. We've tracked it, moved it, done very well with it. Pretty much guided everyone on Twitter and the chat room pretty much perfectly on that. Even during this whole cycle here, during this whole period right here. There was one mistake I made, which was thinking we could get down to 40,000 for the backtest, I think. Yeah, that was the only mistake that I did make, was thinking we could backtest 40,000. But aside from that, through this whole period of consolidation, we calmed everyone, said, don't worry, we're just pulling back to then break out into a mega new high. We talked about every dip, every little micro turn in this whole area, had everyone on board. Even said the breakout would be right there. And then even talked about it on the day of the breakout. And since then, have not wavered from the $120,000 to $130,000 price target. Literally back here. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do it this well next time around for everyone. But basically, as soon as this market bottomed here and pressed up, from that day forward, we had the first target being here. And then the second target being basically 120 to 130,000. So those were the two targets that we've mentioned pretty much along the way. So we should go get that 120, 130 here pretty soon. It would almost be unfair of the universe not to do it after we've only made 16 million Twitter posts about it. Come on, market. Be fun. Be cool. So, yeah. Anyways, today's just a little bit of a funky one, I guess you could say. Look at the SPY. Just absolute dog. Let me bring up some of this stuff again. I don't even know where I'm at. I always say I don't know where I'm at, but I always do. It's just more or less my saying when I'm trying to find a screen that's just disappeared. There it is. Oh yeah, by the way, the VIX just, so you see how the market's kind of just, you see how the SPY just rolled over and kind of slammed again? So we just got to, again, it's like I said, we're starting to get a little bit of a break on the VIX. See this? Ready? See how the VIX is coming back up again? See how the market just rolled over on the SPY, kind of got slapped again? I know it doesn't look like much, but in the real time, we just saw the market press back over the 50 SMA here. It doesn't look like much, but I'll just put it on this chart and stop flipping screens. But right there, we just got back over that 50 SMA. So it's like volatility is still lingering. It's still like, yo, what's going on? And now you're seeing that little top and roll on the market again. It's a day where we really have to focus on the VIX to make sure that the VIX is not going to break away on us, and then the market does some weird and shits the bed, right? So you don't want to be slamming longs like crazy, knowing that the VIX could be starting an uptrend and volatility picks up and then the market gets spanked or something weird. So it's just a day where we could trigger catalysts on the VIX. So you got to pay close attention to that. And then, of course, you'll obviously see, look at the SPY issues. They peaked and just rolled straight down. NYSE issues rolled straight down. That's kind of weird. Volatility just picked up a little bit more. You might get another little down in the market here. It's just an odd one. I don't want to say it's an odd one. We're just kind of waiting. We're sitting around waiting and watching the VIX today. Like, what does the market want? Like, yes, we can see the market internals are moving a certain way. It relates to the pattern, but it's like, is the VIX going to break out today? Or is it going to break out tomorrow? And if so, again, we might put in a little temporary top on this market. That's why the title of the video specifically says VIX Catalyst Day, because we're seeing if the VIX is going to give us the catalyst for the market to kind of get temporary topped or not. Those issues are moving pretty bearish too. I don't know if that persists, but so far I would say those NYSE issues are moving like garbage. The NASDAQ 100 issues moving down. SPY issues are straight down. NASDAQ 100 issues are pretty much straight down. The only thing left right here are basically the FANG names. See, what's funny is just a second ago was the FANG was going down and all the other issues were going up. Now it's the opposite. Now the FANGs are kind of holding and all the other issues are going down, which basically means the market won't sell off if that FANG hold up, that bottom. You would need the FANG to kind of keep persisting normally for a market to really give in. That's usually the case. They usually just won't let markets sell off without the FANG contributing to some of the sell-off. So for right now, to answer your question, Mr. Sircon, I'll just call you Sircon. Somewhere down to 50K, I think is totally in the cards for now. Again, it's kind of one of those things where, oh, by the way, volatility is above the 50 SMA right now. So again, this is a situation we have to be very careful on the longs for the SPY. You got to be on edge here because, again, the price is back over. Now, these things can change. I know it. I keep repeating myself, and it feels like maybe I'm going back, but it's the same thing as this morning. The analysis, nothing has changed. It's all about watching the volatility index. Does it get activated over the 50 SMA? It's one level. So whenever it's above and below, you're kind of flipping, but you're hoping, waiting, watching. Right? You don't want to be just slamming along right now, and the next thing you know, the VIX holds up the 50 SMA, and so on and so forth. And right now, you don't have the market internals supporting a massive long press on the SPY. You do have the FANG holding up, but you basically need the issues on the SPY and everything else to stop going down. Then you could see the market pop and like maybe do a lower high pop, something like that. But right now, you should basically just be chilling. It's really what you should be doing. Sircon, yeah. So it depends on how high Bitcoin goes. My sell target for Bitcoin in the long term is dependent on how high Bitcoin goes. The higher it goes, the higher the sell target increases throughout the years. so on and so forth. So like right now you have a positive MAC trend on the FANG names. That's why your QQQ is holding its higher low dip. You have lower low formation on the SPY equities for a degree. So that's why the SPY is staying down right now. So you're not getting the S&P issues to help the SPY up currently, versus the issues on the FANG are bouncing. That's why you're getting your lower high bounce or higher low bounce on the Qs. All right. Oh, you guys can see all that. It's on the screen. I was looking at this screen, and yeah, but you guys can see that. Sorry. I thought you were looking at this screen for a second, but anyways, yeah. So that's why, again, I like to watch these. It gives me a picture perfect idea of why the markets are moving the way they are, why there's divergence among some markets sometimes. The divergence of markets is no longer even confusing, at least to me. It doesn't mean that you're going to know exactly what's going to happen, but it's just, when you wake up and you're like, oh, well, the Q's is going up and the market and the SPY is going down. It's like, oh, well, duh, yeah, look at the FANG names. They're just going through the roof. Oh, look at the SPY issues. They're going down. It's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense why there's divergence, because it's literally happening. It's not that it doesn't make sense. It's just that that's literally what's happening behind the curtains of the market. Bitcoin new all-time high? Oh, why did they do that? So lame. So lame. No, I'm just kidding. It's literally the same. It's literally nothing. Apple's just hanging. SPY's just hanging. Where's the VIX? See, the VIX is, again, they're not going to make this one easy. Too many eyes on it. I know what's going on. So they're not going to, again, they're going to probably just toy us around on the VIX for a while. I can just already see it. I mean, they did it yesterday. They've done it into today. So they're just kind of toying us on the VIX, not making this one easy. So we're just going to have to be patient, and eventually the VIX will just start either breaking out, or it's going to just basically stay doing nothing. I know it's saying a lot, but it's just one of those situations where they're just not allowing the VIX activity to pick up really quickly, and that's okay. So basically just means we got to sit and wait still. What's going on, Cody? You just taking a nap over there, little guy? Oh, he's my baby. He's just taking a nap. Yeah, I'll take you on a walk here pretty soon, but not now. Daddy's working, baby. Do you believe Bitcoin will hit 1 million at some point? Do you think that it's an inevitable unless some kind of AI system in the future will hack it or something? So I am not the smartest person regarding Bitcoin. I would say that I'm pretty smart in terms of what I've taught myself about it. So I could bring you up to speed on a lot of the things that I taught myself and questions that I asked myself that were of my concern. So we'll do that here in just a second. So I will tell you everything I pretty much know, the way that I understand it, about questions that I had, that I've gone and done the research on, There are things that I don't know and areas that I probably am not qualified to talk on. So I will keep it to things that I'm pretty certain I know what I'm talking about. And it all comes down from having questions myself, concerns, what ifs, and then seeking out the answers for myself. And it's calmed me in terms of, like, well, what if a hack, or, is it gonna last? All of those things. So I have kind of ways that have helped calm me and help me rationalize it, and we'll get into those. But first, I wanted to let you guys know, obviously the market's going down, but number two is this. VIX. What am I talking about? The VIX. You see, watch this. You see how, oh no, you can't see that. Where are we at? You bring it back, double time. All right, you see how the VIX is creeping over that 50? So again, volatility is increasing. It doesn't look like much. It only looks like a few little pennies. But the trend on the VIX is positive again. It's holding. You're starting to see that red candle come through on the SPY. Again, we're starting to break up more volatility in the markets, topping and rolling. You see how today we have kept you away from being extremely long the market because the VIX is potentially signaling we may try and top the market. The market itself isn't bearish. It may not look bearish, but there's signs in other markets that are telling us we might top the SPY today. We might bring it down, whether it be for a longer period of time, a shorter period. There's too many signals sitting here that say don't just automatically swing the market long today. It's not one of those days. It's one of those days where you're kind of playing the in-between and on the sideline until you kind of get that feeling, and we're starting to kind of see that, right? You're seeing the market kind of pull back off the high. You're getting a big bearish candle. And as a result, you're seeing that VIX increase. So again, is it the market selling off that's increasing the VIX, or is it the fact that the VIX is at a key level that it normally can start to increase, and then that sends a scare to the market? However you want to perceive it, that's still the situation we're in right now. And the market internals, obviously, we'll just take a peek. You can assume, right? If the market's going down, you can almost assume the market internals are going down, right? Like, duh. Right, so if you look at them all, right, so I'll zoom in, right, these guys down, roll, these guys were, this is the volume, we're not gonna, but down, and FANG like down, so nothing is performing exceptionally long biased, right, today. Most everything market internal wise have kind of been downsided. There's been a little bouncing in there, sure, but hindsight 2020 overall picture from now to what it's been, it's all really downsided still. And you also have your volatility index creeping above a level that can trigger upsided long pressure on the volatility index. So we're kind of in that be careful scenario today. So do I think Bitcoin will hit 1 million? So the first thing I would say to help rationalize prices of 1 million, 500,000, 5 million, or 6 million, but anything that seems astronomically high to you, how do you rationalize that pricing? The first thing that was easy for me to rationalize extremely high prices on Bitcoin was first think of, if you've ever traded in the penny stock world, take a penny stock, right? When there's not a lot of shares of it and you get a lot of excitement and a lot of popularity with it, a penny stock can go thousands and thousands and thousands of percents, right? From pennies to 10, 20, 50, hundreds of dollars of shares. We've seen it. That's because you have enough interest in something that there is very limited of, right? So what we just did, and what Satoshi Nakamoto basically just did, was put a penny stock into the global market. So now we basically have a penny stock for the purposes of like price pumping, right? That's where we're talking volatility wise. It's not a penny stock, but in terms of supply, it's like a low float. So you have a low float global currency supply, right? Low float, let's say low float global currency, okay? So take a low float and then allow everyone in the world to buy it, and then get governments to buy it, and then you have companies buying it, and then you got people buying it, then you have people losing it, and then that can't go back into circulation because it's gone forever. So you're having a low float global currency that is slowly becoming adopted by banks, governments, companies, mainstream. All right? So that alone should help you rationalize its price appreciation and how far it could go and all of these things. And it's not about how far it could go. It's more or less you have a global low float currency that's picking up an extreme mainstream momentum, adoption amongst governments, and things like that. Right? So that alone can kind of help you rationalize, okay, like, yeah, like $1 million isn't really that hard. It's really not. When there's only 21 million and, you know, basically still the entire planet's not involved. Right? Global, like the usage of Bitcoin is still at the phase of the internet. It's like back in the 1990s, right? So when the internet just first started, the amount of people that were actually using it, that's still Bitcoin. And we're at 100,000, right? And now there's only 21 million. So bring it up, let's just say 30, 40 years from now, 50 years from now, Bitcoin usage is close to that of, you know, the internet usage now, right? And now there's only 21 million of them. Could it be 25 million? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to wrap your head around just how high something like that can go with true global dominance or adoption when there's only 21 million. So it's basically, like I said, it's a low float global currency. So it helped. So trading penny stocks did that for me in that favor, was understanding the low floats and all that, and that's basically what you have with Bitcoin. All right. Again, you can see the SPY is kind of pulling, but the Qs are kind of hanging out, staying up. But like I said, you have a lot of the market falling apart here. You have the SPY, it's falling apart. You have the New York Stock Exchange issues falling apart. The volume in the market's depleting. The NASDAQ 100, or the NASDAQ's going down. The only thing holding up the Qs right now are those fangs. Like, that's literally it. That's all I see. And maybe a little bit of the NASDAQ 100. Yeah. Okay. And see, now this is like, looks like we just set in another gap on the VIX. So now, like, there, you know, like, it's very small, but, you know, VIX could basically pull back to like 1355. So it seems like it's, I don't know, but see, like, they could do a runaway gap here. Eventually they're going to. They don't just allow the market to be easy breeze like that. We got gaps up here, gap there, and there's a gap here. I mean, we got targets on the VIX. Oh, forgot. 21 hour. Yeah. I mean, if we get a true breakout on the VIX today, or even into tomorrow, I mean, we're gonna see the VIX go up to prices of like 1390 to 1385. Could at least be a short-term temporary sell shock to the market. So again, you got to be very cautious on the market for right now. It's just not worth, again, it's not worth pressing longs. Obviously, like we said this morning, it's like, this is a day where we might be able to do a little top or Magoo. And so far we have. Now, to the extent that it continues, we'll see. If we get the move to 1385, 1390 on the VIX and go complete the 1 hour trend, then yeah, the market will probably get spanked. We'll see if that ends up happening though. Yeah, so now back to Bitcoin. Now, talking about the hack thing. So AI, obviously, I don't know too much about that. Maybe one day, but So far, so for Bitcoin, this is what helped me kind of rationalize it. I just started asking all the questions like, if I wanted to hack the Bitcoin network and take over control of it and start changing the protocol and just basically try to sabotage Bitcoin, right? Just the infrastructure alone that you would need millions of ASIC mining machines. So those are going to be some of the best mining machines on the market that can, solve the complex puzzle of Bitcoin the fastest. So you're going to need millions of them to compete with all of the other mining networks that are out there. So everyone that's mining Bitcoin and supporting the network, if you wanted to sabotage that network, you need to take 51% control. So everyone that's mining it globally will now be your competitor. And now you're going to have enough mining power to beat everyone else mining it to take over 51% control and to start changing the ledger, etc. So what that looks like is you're going to need multiple Tesla gigafactories with all ASIC mining machines. Then you're going to need a staff on hand to operate and facilitate the ongoing operation to make sure it stays up and functioning, right? So you're going to need to have a big enough staff for multiple, gigafactories the size of Tesla. Then you're going to need millions of ASIC mining machines. And then you're going to have a massive, basically cooling infrastructure so it doesn't overheat. That's another kind of little tidbit there. And then you would need your own mini power plant in order to generate enough power to keep it all running and online. So there's no one in this world that A, has enough money, has enough property, and can get away with that footprint without some authority finding out, some government agency. The only people that have enough money, have enough land, and resources to pull off such a stunt would be a government, right? And then could they get away with that big enough footprint without anyone finding out? So say they trick the public and the public doesn't know about it, right? But if Bitcoin is so globally distributed, right, and you have so many other governments involved, other governments will be on your back if you were to try to pull something off like that. So I would say the only people that the only organizations that are currently strong enough to sabotage the Bitcoin network in terms of going in, changing the ledger, changing the protocol with a 51% attack, which is taking a 51% control of the network, just like you do a board of a company. Board of a company, you take over a hostile takeover, you need to take over 51% of it, and then you can start changing stuff however you want, right? You have, majority there. So in order to do that, the only organizations big enough with enough money, I would say, are governments, right? But when you have a currency that's so globally distributed, and now you have a bunch of governments invested in it, you have companies invested in it, companies in your own homeland invested in it, there's so many hands in the cookie jar now, it's like all eyes, there's so many eyes watching it now. It's not like you're just screwing with one person's income or one person's currency. You're screwing with China and Russia, you're screwing with equity, like everyone who buys it, Argentina, right? Everyone, any government investing in it, any civilian mining it. There's so many eyes on it now that, again, it's getting to the point where it's almost unstoppable. And it probably has been like that for a long time. The network has been online since whenever it was 2009 or whenever that was. Hasn't failed since. There's been like no hiccup, never hacked, none of this. Always running, always working. So in terms of efficiency, it is so far the most efficient financial network consistently operating without hiccup ever. Your bank closes, then your bank's like, oh, I put your name in wrong. Sorry, gotta fix that, right? So it's like there's a lot of things that can go wrong with current financial networks and setbacks and things like that, and yet Bitcoin's been operating and ongoing and facilitating transactions since day one, no problem. And now it's so big that the only people powerful enough to do it would be a government. But the footprint of doing that is so big that you can't even get away with it. And then it's also so, again, globally decentralized with so many people involved in it, there's too many people watching it. So then when you say something like AI, I mean, yeah, maybe AI is smart enough to do that, but if AI needs that sort of power to do it, it still couldn't facilitate it. Right? So unless AI just basically hacked everyone's stuff simultaneously, then yeah, I guess it could. Yeah, but again, that's a discussion that's above my head now, right? So that's going to be a question for some AI genius to figure out, not me sitting behind my desk. What I did was I answered the questions that I felt I was capable of answering to say, okay, like, yeah, like try and hack it. It's going to be really, really tough, and I don't think it would go. It would not go unnoticed. Now AI, that's a different story, you know. You're saying that Bitcoin bricks don't. I guess I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Maybe I'm just understanding it wrong. Yeah, that was a great question. Like, who knows in 30 years, like, where AI is and what that looks like. But yeah. So again, real quick, I mean, you guys can see, right? You see how the SPY's going down. Obviously, you can clearly see the market internals are pretty bad. If at any point if at any point the FANG names give up, the market's going to get cooked. I promise you. It will. I want to promise you. That's a terrible word to use when doing this, but bottom line, if those FANG give up and start acting like all the rest of the market, cooked. So yeah, too, like you guys can see the divergence. I don't need to show it. I mean, I guess I'll bring it up, but we'll bring this up, right? So there's your divergence of the market. Ready? So like you can see, SPY's been down. This is chopping, but if you look at everything else, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? So like, yeah, you get the point, right? FANG, SPY, yeah. And so, like I said, we've basically broken out the VIX. The VIX is now in an uptrend. We have volatility picking up. So you basically want to stay on the long side of the VIX now and expect the VIX to increase and maybe even get up today to prices of 1390 to 1380. As a result, and again, if that all comes to fruition, you're most likely going to be seeing like more of a bearish day on the market. Again, you would see more of a bearish move if the FANGs start to roll over and give up any of that. The only thing that could really slow the progression of the down move, which sounds dumb saying, but again, you'll need some sort of turnaround on some of these issues and what have you, and if the VIX kind of falls apart. But right now, I do think the VIX is poised to go to 1390, 1380s or so. Could be wrong, but we'll find out sooner than later here. One thing's for sure, I wouldn't fade the pop. I wouldn't fade the pop. So let's go back, check on our friend. Oh, Bitcoin had to go down. I mean, that's okay. It's normal. I mean, we haven't even backtracked the 30-minute trend. So again, there's a good chance we'll see this drop out to about there. That's why it's there. Did we even get the 5-minute? We got the 5-minute. Did we get the 15? Didn't get the 15. So we're going to 15 next. 30 minutes here. And then 4-hour. So right now we're basically testing the 15-minute trend / 5-minute trend right on it. Again, so like right now we're testing 5-minute trend, big one, and then it just kind of, it's like as you go down the list, you just kind of expect you'll get all those guys. I guess I don't really know enough about, I mean, I don't want to say I don't know enough about NVIDIA. Again, I don't look at their earnings, their revenue, those things. So, can't really talk too much in that regard, but NVIDIA? Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Let's just pop this on. Oh, handy dandy guy. One week. Why isn't it working? I don't know. There it goes. That'd be wild. I mean, realistically, it's just fair value. I mean, I guess I don't really have big thoughts on it. maybe when the market goes through some sort of big dip. Again, I don't know enough about the how much they're making and this. I know they're, I just don't know. All I would say is, it's fair value. It's not really on sale. If you buy it, you're just basically buying a stock that you hope continues to appreciate. It's not on sale, right? I wish I could sound like, better about it, but it's just not on sale. The long-term trend is up. Daily trend is positive. 4-hour trend's positive. Well, this is a wrong thing to use. Sorry. 4 hours positive, 3 hours positive, 2 hours positive, 1 hour's positive, 30-minute positive. So right now, pretty much all important trends are uptrending. Doesn't mean that won't change, but yeah, it's just fair value. It'll go down the next time the market goes down, probably. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I don't really think you're at like a huge advantage right now for a buy because it's not on a big sale. You're not at a situation where it just started an uptrend. So like back here, ready? So like look at this. So like right here with Nvidia right here, that's where we last started an uptrend. So from the last uptrend start that I would focus on, the market will be up 7%. So from the last kind of long kickstart of a market, we're up about 7%. So you're 7% from the last long start. You're currently, and as far as support goes, or when I say support, I mean trend potential change. If you bought here, you have a risk of, about 3% down right now. So you'd have to be willing to risk 3% down for the market to still stay in a macro short-term uptrend. And you also run the risk of it not, and then it goes into a short-term downtrend. So again, it's just one of those things where it's like, in the short term, you're not at a good starting point for a long play. In the long term, you're not necessarily on sale. I hope that helps. I guess that's how I'm reading it. See something like MSTR. Like MSTR, I mentioned just yesterday. I mentioned MSTR as basically a little bit of a buy signal, and I mentioned it here in about 390 on Twitter. Right, and I was a little late to it, but I mentioned about, whatever, I'll move the yellow line to where I mentioned, like right about there. I think that was about right. So that's where I started mentioning MSTR. So even I was late to MSTR by about $10 a share from the initial kind of break point where the uptrend could start. So I mentioned this yesterday as like, hey guys, there's a little bit of a long kind of taking place here in the short term. And, from the... went to 458 actually. So from here up, that was a gain of about 16. I think it hit 458 in the after hours too. Anywhere from 15 to like 20% long press from that short-term uptrend start. Now that short-term uptrend start has just resulted in, actually this might be coming into a 1-minute support. Hold on. It's about 382. Hold up, this might have actually just hit a support for a scalp. I don't know though, I'm just checking. Hold on. No, we gave it up, right? Yep. Could be a back test there. But nah. So yeah, just not quite at the start point there. Interesting. Again, don't know enough about Intel and their business model and all that good stuff. Again, we still have that. Remember, we still got that VIX gap fill down at like 1355. So do keep that in mind. Interesting. I'll be right back. I'm going to go get a refill on this coffee. Sounds good. Hola, amigos. Hola, amigos. Yeah. So I guess not a whole lot more to say, I guess. Yeah. Yep. Whoa, why did Bitcoin sell down into that target? And so probably get a little bit of a 30-minute long bounce here. Again, if you're watching Bitcoin, again, we just came into 30-minute target, so a little bit of 30-minute scalp long, whatever, blah, 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 blah. You get the point, you get the point. Again, there's that long kind of kicking off in that level. Pretty standard. Run it up, run it up. Low, high, boom, boom. Arguably tracking down. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe in 5 minutes. I mean, if we get real weakness, obviously we're not going to retrace these levels. But I would already be thinking maybe that 5-minute retrace. Let's see what the 1 minute's at. 1 minute. We'd start with the 1 minute first here. Look at that. Okay. Wait a second. Wait a second. Hold on just a winner tick. Winner tick. I might be somewhere into here. Yeah, again, if we don't just, again, if the market doesn't fall apart here, we should be able to probably get a bounce back up. Maybe it didn't track down some of this lower time frame stuff. What's the market doing? Market's just kind of hanging out. The VIX is kind of slowed down in its long press, and what I do fear is that we're going for the back test of 1355. So it kind of looks like we'll see. No guarantees, but we'll see. Kind of looks like we're going to go for a back test at 1355, which should actually cause the market to go through a little bit of a bounce here on this low. So again, if we go for if we go to backtrack here, if we go to backtrack this 5-minute gap fill, then it's going to result in a little bit of a market kind of scalp long scenario. But, bottom line is, but yeah, I mean, that's very minuscule stuff, but, that's what I do see. I see it, again, if we fail to press long, we're probably going for a 5-minute gap fill. You'll see a little bit of a long pop on the bottom of this market and so on and so forth. So as long as the market internal support that, which they kind of maybe do, not entirely. We'll see. Again, you always got to be careful when we talk about gap fill things, because you can run away from a gap fill. Markets don't have to fill a gap. So, but anyways. Moral of the story is you're pretty much long bias the VIX still as long as it's over that 30-minute 50 SMA. So that's just some small, micro analysis stuff. But, I mean, again, the story goes now. I would say there's one issue about this move, and it doesn't, this is just something you always got to keep in the back of your mind. You see how the SMA is still sloped down? So we've broken it out and we're picking up, momentum and volatility. But the average, the moving average that we're breaking away from is slanted down. Usually when you're kind of changing direction, you'd rather it be flat to point it up. This one's slanted down. Markets can still run away from negatively sloped averages. It's just more favorable if they're flatter in your direction, but either way. I could go back and give you plenty of examples of when you have a negatively sloped average and the VIX cranks away from it, so... So what is the difference of 166 to 734? Sorry, I was doing some math calculations. So real quick, can anybody, just because I'd like to see, can anybody repeat kind of today's narrative in the chat? See if you guys were kind of paying attention to that narrative. And if you can't, that's no big deal. And even, even if you say it a little wrong, it's no big deal. But, more for you guys, what is today's narrative from when we got on the stream? What's the main focus, and how is that going to kind of dictate today's narrative of the market? Can anybody shoot that out for me? Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the last two, those two are very correct. Yep, the internals are pointing down. Yeah, and if the FANG goes to shit, the market will go to shit. That is entirely true. I would just add on that. The more important kind of piece of that puzzle is simply this, which is, and I'm going to delete some of these lines off real quick. So coming into today, building a narrative for today, which was, we're looking for the volatility index, right? So if we're creating this narrative today, since the volatility index is increased to, just call it this 50 SMA, if we start to get above that, that is an early signal that the market is trying to increase in volatility. That's usually a little bit of a bearish signal for the market. So it's, yes, the market's uptrending, but there are signals on the VIX that could lead us to sort of a toppy-ish sort of selling market today. As a result, we have gotten the VIX to break up a little bit over the 50 SMA, and you will see that our market is kind of topping and rolling. Well, not this picture, but wait, is it this picture? Oh, yes, it is. Yeah. All right, we're just going to a little bit of a bottom bounce on the market right now. Again, looks like we might try to do that 5-minute gap fill on the VIX. As a result, you get this little long press off the low. That's very micro stuff. But yeah, we can see the market today. So the main takeaway today was pay attention to the VIX. It's at a level that could start to break up. That could create volatility. And then as a result, we should be able to pull the market down a little bit if it plays nice, which is pretty much what we've done. And building that narrative, we look at the market internals today. And so far, the market internals basically suggest all of that. Hold on one second. I got a phone call here. Oh, welcome back, friends. Welcome back. Looks like VIX, again, moving towards that 5-minute gap fill kind of scenario. Yeah, 30. Oh, that's actually even not 30. But yeah, so that'll be, again, VIX back down into the price of like 1355. Result in, maybe a little bit of a long Papa Magoo. But again, we'll see what those market internals are doing, which so far they can't be doing all that great with based off the way this is moving. Right? You can kind of see, I mean, we bounced a little bit, but kind of stalled out on that bounce. We're not really actively moving to the upside on the SPY issues, kind of sideways-ish here on a couple other things. So it's not like that little bounce we're talking about has much momentum to it for the moment, obviously. Duh. You can see that clearly. What is Pelosi doing, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all we got. Looks like we got our little bit of a bounce here on Bitcoin, though hasn't quite reached the target. We are moving that way pretty good, so not bad, not bad. Down about right there. I'll move this guy to about there. Well, that's going to be a little different here. So we're going to take this guy, move that guy down. We're going to move that guy down. Move back to that 1 minute. Okay. All right, another little SPY roll daddy. Again, not a whole lot to say. Pretty much we have the VIX getting positive on volatility today. That can send some worrisome to the market. That's why we really didn't suggest you should be extremely long biased today. You're actually looking for a little bit of a top kind of a roll potential today. And and again, it's not because the market is bearish, it's because the VIX may be getting positive. So we're using a secondary market to dictate little bearishness into today and this pullback that we're getting so far. Nothing was set up long since the open. The market internals for the day are pretty meh to down. So until the market internals pick up and or the VIX long fails, the market's not gonna go up, really. It's just gonna do whatever this is. And I hate saying that because, like, yes, things will change and markets can bounce and naturally things can change pretty quickly, right? You may be looking at this and be like, oh, we've been down, there's no bounce, it's not going down more, and but that can all change relatively quickly. Things can change pretty fast. You're investing in Rumble. Yeah, I mean, can't say much about it, but whoa, get it back in here. Oh, wrong thing. I don't want that. I should take this off. I don't want to see that anymore. One second, phone call coming in. No, I was just talking without the mic. Yeah, have a good day, Crazy B. Have a good day at work. Is it a little Batman pattern? Are we seeing Batman? So, I mean, you know what's fun is like, you know, like these are the kind of things that are kind of fun to look at every once in a while. It's like when things maybe make sense. So it's like, you know, we see the VIX is getting positive on the 30-minute, could dictate a little bit of a market top kind of pullback scenario. And then, you know, it's like, well, if it was going to be bearish, like, what are we seeing, right? So, like, maybe there's, like, a head and shoulders sort of formation occurring, right? That's possible. Maybe a little bit of a Batman pattern, which is, like, or that would be a double top, but Batman would be, like, and then whatever the kids call Batman, I don't even know, but so it's like, yeah, like maybe that's there. Again, we're really going to need the VIX to pick up for this to amount to anything. Again, you never really expect big drops on the market unless A, it's in a sell signal, or B, you have volatility going into a buy signal. Those are the only two times I really consider that the market is going to have sort of a big down drop or like anything somewhat aggressive down. A, volatility index has to be in a buy signal, or market has to be in a sell signal. If not, everything is just pull back to long. So today, I don't see today as it's a pullback back to long. I see this as more of like a pullback that can continue going down, or maybe into tomorrow. And that would have to be built off the back of the volatility index, which right now it's not moving in such an aggressive manner that's allowing the market to really pull too hard. Well, yeah, we'll see. Let's see what the 1 minute is. 1 minute still positive. 5 minute positive. You know, too, even if you dial down the VIX to like a smaller time frame, like a 5 minute, right? You can clearly see that the market has been down, right? And then right here we had a gap down, and then the market's been higher low. And it's just today where I put this box that we're breaking over levels that could lead to actual volatility up, right? So it's like we've been down. Today, we just started clearing levels. Actually, yesterday. Yesterday, we started clearing levels here at this line. So from yesterday, we started clearing levels at 1333, 1332 that would make sense for volatility to maybe pick up, right? So you can see the market has been down. Then the market bottomed, increased over level 1 for volatility, now above level 2 for volatility. And if successful, then you start to break up more, right? And you can kind of see how that formation has started to change from bearish to bullish, right? Ah, yes. Yes. Let's see what the 10-year yield's doing today. I mean, you know, yeah. Not that too much more to say today. Actually, you know what? I mean, I guess I could use my brain and have more fun. You know, I'm usually just so center focused on the market, you know, SPY, QQQ, and, you know, it's like there's enough there alone to to do, but you know, like I mean, what would be interesting is to look at the sort of the best performing markets so far, sectors. So let me bring that up. So what we will do for funsies is we will look at the sectors that are having the best performance, and then go through some of the best stocks of each of those sectors, and then also look if there's any like sectors that are warming up that could be going into buying operations, things like that. Which if I'm going to do that, probably should use a different screen. Hold on. Now this is simply just for like really entertainment to, you know, not bore you guys to death while simultaneously teaching you a new tactic, but all phones. So this could be 1 month. That's too long. It's a 5-day. It's consumer discretionary. Could be tech. Oh yeah, that would make sense. They've been going. So like, we'll do this real quick. XLY. Let's see where this guy's at. Oh, gotta change this. See, that's a little late. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you can see, well, you can't see, but I'll show you. Hey guys, just an FYI, the VIX is rolling over. See how you're getting that like long pop on the market? Again, as that VIX kind of rolls down a bit and goes for that gap fill at 1355, you'll get this little curl pop on the market. But yeah, so like for example, XLY. You can even look at like a 1 month, but you know, consumer discretionary, XLY up 13% on the month. Ready? So this is kind of interesting. So this is up 13.42% on the month, XLY. Now let's go back to the last buy signal XLY had real quick. So if I were looking at this, I would say that the last buy signal was right about like basically here. So Alt V. So that's where the last buy signal was in the 30-minute, where we started uptrending XLV. We had a back test and support hold here anyways. And it looks like consumer discretionary is what's really been rallying the market this past week. Interesting. So real quick, the return on this. All right. So from the last buy signal on the underlying XLY fund, it's up about hit about a high of 7%, 6% or something like that from that long signal. It's up over the past month like 13%, right? So majority of that, and let's see, this is December. So let's go from the 5th to November 5th. Right about there. So if we go so that's a past month. So almost like this. If we look at, and I'll do a big box, right? So if we go, and this is about a month, about 1 month of data right here. It's a little more than a month, maybe like a month and a couple days, right? So right here, that's about a little more than a month of data, okay? If we look at the XLY fund here, consumer discretionary, it's up 13.42%. Did I say that right? Yeah, it just sounded weird when I said it, but it's up 13%. Over a month. If we look at the 30-minute 50 SMA system and strategy that I like, it would suggest that the two most obviously the best buy points, hindsight 2020, the best buy points, or if you use it, and you took them on. So let's just say the best buy points are basically Alt V, when the market goes into an uptrend here, and then Alt V down here when the market goes into an uptrend here. If you look at those two rallies that start with basically getting over the 50 and then the market taking off, you'll see that the first gain, and we're going to go from exacts, which is SMA break, to peak, which you're usually not going to get. But concept being is, if we go from where the 50 SMA first broke about a month back and then to the high here, that was a gain of 10%. And if we take where the SMA broke and ran to its high here, that is about 6.59%. So there's about 16 to 17% of the gain. Well, so there's over the last month is a 13% gain. But over the course of that last month, we've had rallies that have started right around that 50 SMA, and as it stayed above it, had to hit peaks of, again, 10% and 6%. So there's been two moments within the last month that the short-term trend approach has really contributed to most of the last month's gain. So, yeah, pretty cool concept there. Now, that being said, so again, yeah, you can look at the market, 13% gain, and of those two buy signals in there, majority of those gains came off those buy signals. All right. Also, there's your 1355 gap fill on the VIX. And then as a result, you would see SPY have a little curl and pop long off the low. So there's your curl and push long off the low, contributed by the volatility decrease to gap fill VIX 1355. Cheers. Bitcoin should be coming into that micro target here pretty soon based on the looks of it. So thumbs up to that. I mean, obviously, if we go look at the market internals, we're going to see that the market internals probably turned around a little bit. See this? See how the FANG picked up? Remember we said if the FANG drop out, market shits the bed. FANG did not drop out. They kind of rallied up, kind of keep pushing. Some other markets are picking up. I mean, everything's kind of picking up there. See that? Bottom off lows, increase. That's the NYSE. FANG names, bottom off lows, flag, pick up, increase, advancing. You have the NASDAQ 100 advancing and NASDAQ advancing, right? And then you have the SPY issues. They're still kind of lackluster, but, anyways. So you get the point. All right, guys, so check this out. All right, so remember how we talked about the SMA being sloped, right? See how it's sloped down like that? It's also in the playbook that if the VIX fails the break of the 50 SMA and to transition to a breakout in a long bias move, it then likes to reset back to the 50 SMA, all right? So this is kind of what you look for in the event the market fails the breakout and it fails the 50 SMA transition. A lot of times it can reset itself to the 50 SMA. So that's something else we pay attention to, especially when they're sloped negative like this. If we fail to break away the market on the VIX, you should expect then that it's likely it can come back down to test the 50 SMA. As a result, you will see your market get bought back up again, which would be somewhere over here. So there's SPY, right? See how we're coming up off that low? See how we saw that 5-minute VIX gap there? All right, so there's a 5-minute gap in the chart, which basically means if we're not running away, we're going to go back, fill the gap. So we use the micro term analysis on the VIX to understand that there's reasons that we still may need to pull the market down and maybe not break away, that being one of them. So again, if we continue to fail the breakaway on the VIX, then there's really no reason for the markets to be too bearish anymore, right? The only reason the markets were bearish to start the day is because the volatility index is kind of suggesting, hey, we might break out today, right? If the breakaway fails and it resets, then the long will get picked back up, and anyone shorting the lows still left in, they get squeezed out. I know it's a lot to take in, and I know there's a lot of different angles there, but this is the market. This is the market. That's why you can see things change so quickly, is because, you know, nothing is always a straight line. Never is anything just a perfect straight answer. There's a lot of what ifs when it comes to the market. So, like right here, when the market starts breaking away the 50 SMA, and we're like, oh, well, it left a gap in the chart. So it's like, oh, well, the market's setting up. That's like, to me, when I see that, it's like the market is setting up the scenario to fail the breakaway and then pull it back to the gap fill, right? So you got to pay attention to things like those and kind of, you know, and it helps, right? So it's like, yeah, we knew they were breaking the 50 SMA. Volatility could pick up. It could run away. But then all of a sudden the market creates a gap, and it's like, well, well, it would be better if the market didn't give us it would be better for the breakout if the market hadn't given us some sort of secondary reason to maybe pull it down in the micro. But it did. It gave us a gap fill in the chart. So it's like, are we going to keep pressing the VIX long in the immediate while there is a gap to fill just below us? Maybe not. We might need to go fill that gap first. And as a result, you'll see something like that, where the market in the short term pops the market, right? So instead of you being like, oh, well, Connor says we're breaking over the 50 SMA, so the market's going to top and it's going to go for forever. It's like, I mean, it can do that. Oh, but then look what happened. They put a gap. They set up a gap below price action, which then sets up the scenario that you just literally saw. It's literally what you just saw was a setup, right? Market leaves a gap. Let us bring the VIX down. As a result, VIX goes down, market pop, right? So that was literally a setup that was just put into the chart in front of our face today. And that's why I had to mention it, even though it goes against the VIX going up, right? So even though it's like, yeah, we're breaking the 50 SMA, and yes, I kind of think the VIX might go up, they just literally put right in front of our face a gap fill to the downside. So it's like, am I going to sit here and be like, well, it's going to keep going, or do I have to take in that new information and apply it to the market? And I did, which is we have the potential for a short-term decrease VIX down to gap fill, and as a result, you should get a pop long off low. Took a while for it to kind of come to, but she did. She did. Oh, those little schemers. Shying our targets. That's okay. Little schemes. So yeah, back to sector stuff here. So kind of curious. Let's go through these guys and just kind of see where they're all at. XLC. So like when I look at XLC, this one would be like, nah, I'm good. Because again, it started a buy signal a while ago and it's been up. So it's kind of like, nah, right? I'm kind of looking for something that has either been in a sell move and it might be ready to go into a buy move. So where's weakness? Maybe getting ready to be strength. So XLC wouldn't really be, and we'll see what all of this comes up. Not XLY, XLP. Debatable. See, like this one had a long move back here, then just went into a short-term sell, and now we're below. So this raises the questions like, is it going to stay downtrending or does it go into an uptrend, right? So that's kind of where it's like, you know, this maybe it would have been a better pick after all of this, and then getting through some of this, you know, down in here, it's like, well, we kind of had a big decrease. Or even here, right? That's a big decrease back to a long, right? So it's like after such a big decrease, there's something to claw back. Right? So that's what I'm kind of debating when you look at this stuff. XLE, energy. So this would kind of be an interesting one to follow. And I would say that, and that's mainly because you can see it's been downsided for, I don't know, let's see, from November 25th. So it's been 10 days. So this has been on a 10-day down. So, you know, this is going to be down, you know, decent amount over whatever, a couple days. So this could be something where you track and then kind of track it to get back to positive. And when you start thinking it's getting positive, you could maybe try to join in on that trend back to the upside. So, you know, you've been having some weakness. And you can even see, and here's another thing too, is you have to understand that markets a lot of times can be a reciprocal of what has previously happened. So if we go right here, take this, you can see it's the exact same pattern. It's like a mirror image. So when trends kind of play nice, sometimes you'll get what we call the reciprocal image, which is take where I'm putting this vertical line, Alt-V, and if you look at the pattern on the left side, it's the exact same thing on the right side, but just on the downside. Ready? So if we look at this move from right here, so watch this. So this is the exact same as the other side, just inverse and the reciprocal. It's backwards. You see that? So you see how it's literally the exact same pattern where this is kind of like up, awkward flag up, and this is down, awkward flag down, out, up. Okay? So do understand that when trends go from positive to negative, a lot of times they're going to create sort of a backward image of what just happened. So it's like they take the previous market and flip it backwards and run it the opposite. So that's kind of when you have like a symmetrical trend change. Not the most common thing, but it does happen, you know, fairly frequently. But yeah, so like even here, I mean, this one's not as clean. I mean, this is I would call like another symmetrical market right here. So this is another symmetrical market. So this is where we bottom, Alt-V, reverse. And literally the pattern's almost the exact same. Ready? So it flips bearish below. And it has whatever you want to call it. This little like stair step down. Bottom. Then it gets positive. And it has the stair step up. It's literally the exact same market, just flipped backwards. All right. And that goes from negative to positive, negative, positive, and a lot of times it's almost like a script. They're like, oh, we just did this, flip the code, put it backwards, run it up the other way. Pretty common, actually, to see it. Yeah. So that being said, this guy here. Speaking of. Because if this is a symmetrical market, then I wonder what the next thing is going to be. Remove 11 drawings, kind of bit. Not sure. But yeah, bottom line, this has some weakness on it. So when that gets back to positive, that might be an area to focus on because it's been having some weakness. XLF financials look like they've been pretty good over the past month. So, that's another one that's kind of been going under some short-term weakness. This, I was going to say, like, look at that. Like, that was a pretty nice, you know, again, you went through quite a bit of weakness. Back to positive, boom, right? So that was a good one, but that doesn't mean we're on it now. We're going through weakness on that one too. XLI, that's going through weakness. XLB, that could be next on the list. The materials market, that could be something you pay attention to. XLRE, that could be another one, and then XLU. So like really right now, there's really no market that's like, other than like XLP. Yeah, XLP. XLP is the only one that's like near the 50 SMA where it could be kind of doing one of those deciding gigs. But anyways, yeah, I mean, that's kind of... And then from there, again, you can kind of go into each of the stocks that are running those markets. So let's look at XLP here real quick. 1%. Who's got a big? So Costco, big guy here. Cost 10%. That's already been in a buy move. EL. That's, well, it would make, well, no, it wouldn't make sense. So look at XLP. Walmart's, see, like, look at Walmart's been cranking and banking on its buy signal for a hot minute now. Walmart. So I'm curious. DLTR might be starting a little bit of a sell move. Tap is two back and forth. CHD, that one's got a little weakness on it. Might come back alive. SYY cranking and banking from its last buy move. Kroger went through a buy move today, so this is kind of interesting, right? So we could take a look at Kroger. See how Kroger was negative, kind of flirted with the 50 here, then got back over it today. So if we literally go to the 50 SMA and then go to the 1 minute, you're just basically going to probably see like a breakout right there. See that? It may not be perfect, but ready? Zoom in to my screen. Okay, see where that 50 SMA is at? Right there. I'm hovering. I put the yellow line there so that when we go to this 5 minute or this 1 minute, you'll basically see it's a breakout right there. Zink. Right? So you started the day negative, back tested 50 SMA, tried to break out, stayed bearish, bought back up, broke 50 SMA, market positive. Right? Now, it's sold all the way back down, and you're basically retesting the support area right now. You know, and that's just kind of the thing, is like you can't control the market. You can only try to be on the right side of the trend, right? So you can take something like Kroger, where we had a breakout today. Again, we'll zoom in once more time. Right? You had a little bit of a breakout. Market got positive, ran from 60 to 61.40. Okay? And at the same time, you got other stocks like Walmart, who went on a buy signal. Back freaking, I don't even know, like here. Like, look at, ready, watch this. So we'll go to Walmart, pre-market. It happened during the pre-market on this day. So we'll put a line there. We'll go back to Walmart on this day. I had to put a pre-market on Rickson and R. So we'll go back to Walmart on the day that right there. I don't even know. Was that earnings? Yeah, it was earnings. So earnings. So like think about it like that. They basically used earnings. So on the day of the earnings announcement, they broke. That's another funny thing too, is like on the day of earnings, they broke in the after hours the Walmart stock into an uptrend. So on the day, actually the night before, they broke Walmart into an uptrend, back tested support. So now Walmart is actually uptrending. When I say uptrending, I mean it's literally changed to a positive trend the night before earnings. They release the earnings. What do? They wick the market down right back to the 50 SMA, a little below, and then buy it back up. So essentially, they broke Walmart into an uptrend, used earnings to slap the price back down to the 50 SMA, then keep it in an uptrend. And then since then, you've seen the market on Walmart just straight rally on out because, again, we're into a buying operation starting here at the price of 84.77. So that was an interesting one. So again, you can have situations like that where they use it on earnings. We go into an uptrend. They do a little finagly back test, or you could have a situation like today. You know, it's Kroger. Stocks are volatile. Stocks don't have to play super nice, you know, but you can't deny the trend, right? The trend is here. So we broke over it. You can see the market attempted it. The market tried it. Ran it up, not quite ready. You know, it just is what it is. And now one could say like, oh, because there's resistance here, and maybe it's because the setup isn't as good, and whatever the case might be, you know, so be it. But you broke trend here, market got a little positive today. Okay, so basically we did our 30-minute bounce. The schemes shied our target 1. We missed that by a little bit on that last bounce. That's fine. Just is what it is. I'm not even really concerned about it by any means. So we've done the 30-minute bounce. Now we've taken out the 30-minute support. So naturally we're going to transition to the hourly. So our next target down is pretty much right here, right now. All right, so we might do a little bit of an hourly kind of little shindig here. The chart structure doesn't look great. It looks bearish, but again, we are coming into the 1 hour sell target now. We bounced the 30. Now we're coming into the sell target. So again, this is arguably going to be a 1 hour little counter trend bounce location. Doesn't have to be, but again, should be treated that way in the short term. And then the next big level we're going to pay attention to, most likely on the way down. Ooh, there's a couple, but we're going to probably pay attention to this next. Whoa, wrong thing. Low. It's kind of a wide zone. It's kind of awkward. It just the way that this is kind of set up, I just don't have like a. I would love to say it's just here and in, but you know, it's kind of just an awkward setup. So we kind of need to be a little bit. I don't know how to say it. You have to kind of think outside the box here with this one. So I just don't. Let's see. 1 second. Maybe. Yeah. It's just an awkward setup. 1 second, phone call, be right back. Hello.
Hi, this is Adrian's True Service.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hi. So I am calling in regards to the payment.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to Adrian and he was able to send that over. I'm not sure if he received it.
Oh, let me double check. Usually I would be notified, but I was sick and tired of all the notifications, so I turned off all notifications on my phone, and my life has been a lot better. 1 second. Yep, I did receive that. Perfect.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Have a good day. Sorry, we should be good now. My bad. Sorry, people. So real quick, I was just kind of getting into like kind of the fractal nature of the market, which is let's just assume for a second the market on Bitcoin wanted to go down to this blue box, because again, this is the daily chart. You can kind of see there's like some daily demand down there. So let's just say it wanted to go down there, similar to this. You see how we were going down and then the market split up here. So that would make like daily demand here. Okay. So let's say that it's the same scenario this time around, right? So the market went up, then it got bearish and split down, and then got bullish and split up. So like the demand would be somewhere like in there. So let's just say that the daily chart wanted to go down to there, right? Well, as it's trying to go down to there, there's also many other time frames prior to, which are their own market. Oh, we heard the phone call. Great. Whatever. So yeah, anyways, we have we have many other markets that come in before that. So kind of what we just did was this. Not what we just did, what we've been doing, right? So if we go just like to a 5 minute, we even started a 1 minute, right? So if we go to a 1 minute, which, yeah, so let's go to a 1 minute. Okay, so this is clearly a breakout. If you're looking at this 1 minute chart, you might go like, there's a flag pattern, that's a breakout, right? So when I see that, right, when I see something like that, my first thought is, okay, cool, market's breaking out, everyone's chasing it up. I'm pretty much just going to track the breakout. So there's like a couple ways to do this, and yes, it'll probably stop working as well once I show everyone and everyone starts using these strats. But you know, it is what it is. I know, you know, it's for the good of the people, right? So nothing better than that. So I would say, like, where's the breakout? So the breakout's really either the high or it'd be like right here. Actually, I should just hold on. I'll just anchor there, right? So it's either the high or like this split spot. So you'd basically be like right here, right? and I know that if this is the breakout and everyone's chasing up, then I'm going to look for a dip at some point in the future back down to the volume weighted average price of the breakout. So you're basically taking that market in itself and using it, right? So regardless of what may have happened yesterday or an hour ago, what we do know is that we're just going to think of this portion of the market, just this breakout. So let's take that. Just that breakout alone, let's track that market. And in the short term, that market tells me it has a volume weighted average price to about here based on the breakout. And that's a 1 minute chart. Obviously, a 1 minute will catch up quicker than a 5 minute and a 30 minute and a 1 hour, right? So as things go up, right, just like here, they broke up. As thing goes up, as they fall down, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go and backtrack. They don't, they might backtrack at a later point in time, or they may backtrack sooner or later. But whenever they do, what time frames come first. 1 minute comes first, 5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minute, etc. So as this market breaks out and it breaks up, we know that when it starts to pull back, it's not going to pull back and then go to the weekly chart. I mean, it could, but as it goes there, it has to go through a 1 and a 5 and a 10 and a 15, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because each one of those is a market in itself, okay? So the way I would simply read this last move on Bitcoin as we broke out was market breaks out, market eventually is going to lose steam, it's going to retrace, and what is it probably going to do? Go screw over everyone in the micro term that bought this breakout and chased it up. We're going to roll it all the way down into a key level that would probably take out everyone on that move first. So think about, let's just say, not someone buying and holding and blah, 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 blah. By the way, there's your Bitcoin counter trend long target, basically exactly where I said it. It's just pure luck. Again, guys, it's just straight lucky. That's just it. You sit here for, too many hours of your life, and you can sit on a YouTube stream and call prices like that for people. All right, but until you basically do it every single day of your life and drive yourself crazy for a couple years at a time, then, But so I pride myself on this work because it's taken a lot of time to get here. But anyways, so there's your counter trend long off the 1 hour with Bitcoin. That's only, what did we just increase the price? That was $100,672. That's the cool part. So 1 second, we're gonna take this guy, put that right there. So basically, we just took an asset that's $100,000 and some change, nearly bottom ticked it for you guys to the penny beforehand. Also told you it would sell there, and then there would be a bounce here in the counter trend. So that's taking a $100,000 asset, and then telling it where it's going to sell to in the micro, telling it where it's going to bounce before it bounces in the micro. And now it's up, let's say it's 1,600 to 1,001.05. So it's up about $1,000 in share price in the micro from a free YouTube stream with the guy with the sick mustache. Cheers. So I do pride myself on being able to somewhat accurately predict one of the most expensive asset classes in the world globally. That's a good feeling. That's cool. It's taking a lot of time. So anyways, there's that. Now, what you just saw, arguably, ready? Watch this. So here's the 1 hour. All right, so the 1 hour chart, if we look at the 1 hour chart, where is the breakout on the 1 hour chart? It's right here, right? If you look at this move, right? So like take this move and then this little consolidation and that breakout. All I'm doing is taking all of the volume that participated in the last 1 hour breakout and then figuring out where their average volume weighted average price is. It's right there. So for the 1 hour market, that was the 1 hour back test. Let's go dial it back a little bit. I hear you and this Brandon guy just have a magical crystal ball. We do have a magical crystal ball. We keep it shiny and we help the public for the greater good. That's what we do with our crystal ball. But I don't know, dude. It is kind of crazy. I don't know if it's just pure luck, if we just speak it into existence. I honestly, sometimes it kind of shocks me. I don't really know, to be honest. Sometimes it's kind of weird. So for example, take the 1 hour chart, right? And now let's go back to the 1 minute. All right, so now we go back to the 1 minute, and let's go figure out where that 1 minute breakout was. So we're just going to go to this high, right? So right here at the high, we take that 1 minute breakout. And where's the so what you just saw on the 1 hour was the same thing that happened on the 1 minute, but it was just here. Right? So now what I would say to you is, like obviously, 1 second, zooming in. So there's our 1 hour support bounce, right? That's it. So that's where I would watch for a 1 hour support long. And there you have it. Doink, random. And just before that, where would I have watched for a bounce? I would watch here. This one here. That bounce, this one was the 30-minute long. So this was our, hold on, let me type it in. So this was our 30-minute support. Just below that, here is our 1 hour support. Okay. Both basically penny tick. Not really, but I mean, when you're using an asset that's $100,000, that's basically a penny tick, right? It's bottom. It's bottom ticking. Now, did it last extremely long? Did it roll over? Sure, all of these things. But naturally, what I always try to do is if I'm going to pick a point in the chart, I want it to be pinpoint accurate. That's usually what I'm going for. Doesn't always work that way. But, there you go. The whole downtrend... The two spots I say can be little support bounces end up being, so far, the best bounce within this downtrend so far. And it's not like we're expecting these supports to just reverse and run the market up like crazy because we know it's selling down. But eventually, markets have to find support and they have to reverse eventually. So they're eventually going to do that. And they're going to pick a point. The objective is trying to find those key points that at any point, it might end up doing that for you. So your risk is lower, right? You could have picked up Bitcoin or whatever at any one of these bounces. Not really true because it's can have such a wide spread. But, point being is like if you want to put something onto the long side, you want to have a low risk entry. So if you were looking for a 1 minute long trade the other day on Bitcoin, then this would have been a low risk entry, right? Down there. If you were on the hourly chart or the 30-minute chart and you were looking for a back test and a dip, then you'd be somewhere like here, right? Now, you might be able to say, oh, well, this chart structure broke and it's downtrending now because we broke support. I mean, yes and no. I mean, you broke down, like this move. Yeah, this may be broken down this, but you have not broken down the hourly scale, right? If I take all this stuff off again. Remove 9 drawings. But you did not take out the hourly, right? So you may have taken out that previous, 1 minute low, but, you're still above the hourly. Right there. And then, yeah, so basically, that's just what we kind of watch on the way down. So now I would say to you that, yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of a bearish top. So, yeah, maybe it rolls down and maybe it goes lower. But all I would be looking at is, where is the support going to get picked up, right? And then another big one. So if we go to the 4-hour chart, so this is one of the bigger ones. So if we look at the 4-hour chart, which is kind of awkward with the way it's kind of looks. So I'm kind of iffy on this one. But then I would still be looking as low as here. So this would still basically be where I expect this market to retrace. Now, I said this yesterday and I was wrong. And we took our first support off the 4-hour and just rallied out the market. But if we look at the 4-hour scale, using the same logic, right? We would look at the 4-hour and we go, this whole 4-hour chart's been running since here. And the volume weighted average price I like of the 4-hour scale is down here. So then I would look for the 4-hour long bounce trade there. All right. And prior to getting to the 4-hour, we did a 1 hour, right? And then we arguably tested the 5 minutes, right? And then the 15 and the 30. And we're currently on the 1 hour, right? And that's where I see our market right now. It's currently on the 1 hour scale of Bitcoin. And that doesn't mean that other time frames aren't at play. It's where we're currently at in the real time with Bitcoin. That's one way that I look at that market. Speaking of, what's going on with the VIX is just hanging out. It's not really doing a whole lot. Market looks like it's kind of just hanging out. It's just awkward. I don't want to call it awkward, but you know. Let's check on our friend Ethereum. Oh yeah, by the way, Ethereum is, I mean, I don't want to get everyone's hopes up, and that's because, I mean, you know, we mentioned getting long Ethereum back here. This is when I had, as soon as, yeah, so this is where my long recommendation for Ethereum was back here. I was a little early. I was early in the sense that we didn't get the exact low. I was late because I should have got the exact low here, but anyways, I recommended the Ethereum long back here. Right there, at the vertical line. That's when I said you should basically get long Ethereum. It's ready to basically bottom and go up. And again, you can see it. I picked it up pretty early that time around, but you can see it, right? It's all downsided. And then right there, peak, and then you go. Right? See, what do you want to call that? A head and shoulders type jazz? Whatever. I personally view this as a bull flag right there. All right, that's what I see as more like a bull flag in that bottom. Even the daily chart looks pretty good like that. So I kind of see this as more like a bull flag bottom. All right, so if I just draw my own fake bull flag, it would be like this. But anyways, our first targets for, I don't want to say our first targets, but like the main targets for Ethereum were basically here to 3,500 to 3,800. Now that we're above those, this is where you're basically, you're close to squeeze. We've already squeezed shorts on Ethereum, but now we're just getting to levels where more shorts can get squeezed. So I do think Ethereum's going to continue pressing. It's going to keep going higher, though it may not be moving as fast as some other alternative coins. And though, but ultimately it's getting to the point where you're probably getting close to squeezing out a new batch of shorts. And it's pretty much, it's everyone that, you know, is in denial about Ethereum getting above like these highs. Let me take this off. So it's all about, you know, everyone who's, you know, basically in denial about getting above these highs, which we still haven't cleared them. But though we haven't cleared these levels, we've already cleared levels that are gonna force those people up most likely. So that's the other thing too, is I've been tracking this. So I'll show you real quick. And if, you know, it's all good. There's not enough of you guys here, you know. If we were streaming to, you know, 4,000 people a day, like some of the other YouTube channels, then, you know, I'd be a little bit more hesitant to giving away all of this the way I do. But then again, that's probably why we can't, you know, stream to 6,000 people for the time being, because, you know, they might not want some little guy like me coming in and telling you where hourly support is on a $100,000 asset, you know, to almost a penny. It's not maybe the best look, but you never know. So getting back to Ethereum, here we go, Ethereum USD. So getting back into Ethereum, basically what we know is that we have now, based off the weekly scale, looking at the weekly chart, we have taken the weekly chart and we have squeezed out everyone who's been, I don't want to say everyone, but if we take the main volume trend of the highs of the last sell move, we've taken them out here, squeezed them up. Now we have put them on max pain being the purple. And so you're getting to the point where, again, most people are squeezed. I don't want to say most people, but like you're squeezed here. And then once you start getting above the purple, you're going to activate another squeeze. So yeah, we're just basically to the point where we can activate another squeeze zone, which of course just lines up with the breakout of these previous highs. But So someone could be looking at the break of these previous highs, whereas I'm more or less focused on us breaking over these purples and holding above the purple. Because if we're breaking above the purple and holding above the purple, then it tells me that everyone in all the volume that was bearish from here and down is basically getting held up. And boom, right? So instead of, thinking, oh, got to wait for the breakout, I'm looking at a volume perspective like, I know that everyone that participated here, whether we're above the high or not, they're all underwater. Almost all of them, right? And so it's like, if they can't bring us back down, then we're going to squeeze them right up. So that's kind of the concept. Is now I'm basically just tracking Ethereum, looking for anything support-wise that's built over in this photo, the blue. So in the blue here, we know that really anything over this blue, the short sellers are really basically pissed off, and hopefully we just squeeze them to all hell. So yeah, this is kind of a situation where, you might even still see Ethereum pull back deep as 3,600, but the benefit is you still have that back testable long in effect, right? So you've pushed through, you had a little back test, but even if you dip down like this, it would still just be a back test and then the opportunity to run higher. It's if, all the back test kind of fails and then starts doing that, it might not be ready, right? But ultimately, you still have that benefit of a back test of the breakout in that volume perspective to then still rally up. So it's a benefit. Alrighty, 1 hour. No, I won't say 1 hour fail, but yeah. Anyways, I think that's probably a good spot to end it for the day. And today was kind of just an odd one. We did a decent job directing people, I'd say. Kept everybody from longing the high, kept you on more of the sell side. Market sold down today. Then helped you out on the low of day bounce for the SPY using the VIX 5-minute gap fill. Then also helped you understand that the micro term Bitcoin chart was kind of aimed down, and we're going to go for some support back test. Nailing the 30-minute target, then bottom, nailing the 100-minute or hourly target, slight bottom. And now, arguably, we'll see, but next targets down for me are probably going to be the 4-hour. I usually don't mess around with the 2 or the 3 very often, but they can be used to a degree. But yeah, we might be looking down at this 4-hour back test now, maybe somewhere close to that. But to me, that would be, if the hourly fails, then I would start looking at that 4 hours, kind of that next catch-up level. So yeah, we'll see. Again, remember, this is all still like very short-term stuff. We're not talking about any big daily levels or anything like that. Weeklies, monthly, nothing like that. So anyways, you guys have a great day, and I will catch you back tomorrow. And then after that, I won't be on in the morning streaming every day like this. I might do some afternoon stuff for funsies. But, that being said, I will... I will catch you guys in the next one.